Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session of the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing and public meeting of March 5th, 2024. We will be resuming this afternoon with public meeting item number 2. We are a little bit behind schedule, but we will get through public meeting item number 2, and then we will begin our public hearing agenda to review new applications for work on designated properties. And with that, I will turn it over to our Director of Preservation, Corey Harala.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll start this afternoon session with public meeting item number 2, LPC 24-05350. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 850, Lot 14, 924 Broadway in the Ladies Mile Historic District. This is a mid-20th century commercial style building converted from 2 row houses originally built in 1854 and later altered multiple times in the first half of the 20th century. The application is to legalize the installation of metal windows in non-compliance with Permit for Minor Work 09-4532. This was read into the record at the public hearing of February 13th, 2024, but it was not presented at that time. Now I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Good afternoon. My name is
Sorry, after we open the hearing.
Oh, right, public meeting item. All right. Commissioner Ginsburg, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the proceedings are open and you may speak.
Thank you. My name is Hilda Cohen. I am from Matisse Architecture and Design, and we are presenting an application to legalize installed windows at 924 Broadway. It is located in the Ladies Mile Historic District, and we were originally hired to make an assessment of the windows that were installed. And we made a recommendation that based on their existing condition to keep these and legalize them, and we will follow with the presentation. What you're seeing are some photos of the historic 1940s pictures of 924 Broadway. Is the white building, and it's highlighted also as the current on the bottom right. These are prior to 1950 when a lot of the stone detail was actually shaved off and then covered with metal panels. These 3 images, the one on the left is the existing windows that were on the application that was approved in 2008, the LPC application. The middle is the windows that were proposed. The highlighted areas are the elements that that the building is in violation, which is that the top 2 transoms of the 2nd and 3rd floor are not rectangular, they're square, and that there's a double hung window on the 2nd floor. And on the right is an image of the installed windows, and also highlighted are the 2nd and 3rd floors, the transoms that are now square instead of rectangular. This is a larger photo. We were able to get it without the sidewalk shed. There's been actually a sidewalk shed up for numerous years. And this sheet really kind of talks about what the violation was, but it also talks about some of the history of this building, and that the character of the building is not what is the historic element of this building. It is really the scale and the age. A little bit more about those photos. The image on the left was the existing condition, and on the right was the proposed. This also shows one of the elements that was in the proposed, which was a steel single pane window. And when we had initially seen this, we were thinking, oh, that's really not that energy efficient. But what in fact was installed was aluminum frame of the same color, but it has a insulated pane window. Here are some of the images of that insulated pane window. We reviewed it. The sealant is in good condition. Everything is in good condition. And the element and the color is also the same as what was in the permit. Here are a few photos of what was before. This was prior to the removal. And they don't match quite the drawings, but they match quite well what ended up being installed. Again, this was the color and the material were really did match. It is just the ratio of the second floor and the third floor transoms. And so one of the things that we found was that on the existing permit, the 2008 permit, there was numerous facade repairs that were done. The only item that is in violation is the ratio of that second floor and the third floor transoms. These existing windows do not detract from the building's scale and age, which are the noted features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Ladies Historic Mile, or the Ladies Mile Historic District. These are energy efficient windows, and overall would reduce waste because these are really good condition windows, and we don't recommend, based on the existing conditions, to replace them.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So I just want to understand this. Someone filed at the building department for the work in 2008 and it never got sent to landmarks?
No, in 2008 was the LPC permit that allowed for all of the facade work and for the replacement of the windows.
But the windows then weren't replaced per the drawings?
Correct. And
Okay.
it was just the second and third floor because at that time, those were the vacant floors. We looked through for shop drawings. We don't think that this was some intentional error. It was just there really wasn't someone maybe watching over it as well as they should have. The top floor matches the drawings.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
when you confronted this person, they said that, that they made a mistake, they didn't have drawings? What did they say? What excuse did they use?
Having come across this kind of thing where if you don't have shop drawings, which we could not find shop drawings for the windows that were presented, they were likely made to match more what was there and then brought to site and installed without anyone going back to the LPC drawings to confirm that. That's what our assumption is, but that's
But,
just an assumption.
but the material, it's the cost of the material, right? I mean,
I didn't.
what was specified was more expensive.
What was specified, it was less energy efficient. It was galvanized steel and what was in the drawings to be approved and single pane. And then what was installed was much more in keeping with what was there, which was sort of a thicker aluminum frame with an insulated panel for insulated pane for all of the glazing.
And so Corey, can you just confirm for us the change in material from steel to aluminum is metal to metal? So for the purposes of our rules, that doesn't trigger a commission review. So is it just the configuration with the proportions of the transom to lights? So that is the reason that this is before us. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Chu, did you have a question?
I mean, it's a requirement for the staff to use the staff level rules to match whatever's deemed to be the historic windows configurations. That includes things like proportions, dimensional details, et cetera. So that's why we would have reviewed and approved and did something that didn't have the extra sashes that you see today. However, we will note this is a highly altered building that's been altered multiple times. So doesn't even look like it did during the time of the tax photo. So it's a little different and less straightforward than, say, a typical application.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Lutfi. Is your mic?
This replacement happened all at the same time, correct?
The two windows that have the ratio that is not in keeping with the drawings happened before the fourth floor, which is in keeping. Those two windows did happen at the same time in between 2008 and 2011.
So there were two different contractors.
Whether it was two different contractors, it was a later date because of the vacancy. The reports and history of what happened, we could find was that the fourth floor was occupied, and so they did not do the window replacement at that time. We didn't have information about whether it was a different contractor or not.
So, I mean, the whole thing is like crazy. So the lower two floors are not in keeping with the drawings. Then time passes and the upper floor gets replaced. And no one's looking at what happens in the lower floors. Uh-huh. So maybe it was never going to match. Oh, well, no, wait, that's not true. Whatever, I don't know. But the same the same window was spec'd. It just might have been different proportions.
So it's as you can see on the left diagram, the top windows would always have a different proportion at the top.
So this is just a materiality issue. Mhm.
The transoms are, notably taller on the second floor and somewhat more on the third floor than what the drawings showed, which was to have them be the same on each floor. But I mean, the drawings also look like they may have been off a little bit from what, we see on that one sheet.
Right, because I'm still, Sarah, I thought originally that the windows were going to look exactly the same on every single floor based on the drawings.
I think that was the intent and it didn't turn out that way. But
Mm.
ultimately, I think that's the request is, can the commissioners find it appropriate to have proportions that do vary just at the transoms, not elsewhere? Is
Mhm.
that appropriate, how it
Mhm,
turned out,
mhm.
given the state of the building and it's not matching its historic, even forties appearance
Mhm.
for a long time?
Got it. Okay.
Okay, other questions? All right, let's see if we have any public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'll turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised for this item. The first being Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC does not support this legalization. It is unclear to us why these windows were installed out of compliance with the applicant's approved C of A, but we believe the windows should be in compliance with the approved drawings. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Sarah, so John Graham from the Victorian Society has his hand up again, and John previously testified on this, so.
Yes, the Victorian Society of New York testimony was recommending denial, stating the proposal will still overwhelm the original massing of the house and put historic fabric at risk. Oh, my mistake, sorry. Okay, sorry, let me put that up. I apologize. Yes, VSNY recommends denial, stating that the windows as installed throw out the regularity and unity it provided.
All right, so we've heard some negative testimony about the proportions. Is there anything you'd like to say in response to that at this point?
Sure. drawings in reflecting were never meant to have all three the same height. The two second floor and third floor are the ones that are sort of in violation. The text from the permit indicated removing the existing 4-part clear finished metal windows and installing new 4-part metal windows with a clear finish. So in terms of text, it was very similar. And in terms of what even in the permit had been highlighted, the ratio of the windows was not what was the overall importance of this building specifically to this district. It's the scale and it's the age of the building. You know, when in discussion with the community board, one of the things was about cost. And I do think that our carbon footprint cost and how much these energy efficient windows would cost us to just remove windows that function perfectly well and to replace this with windows that are literally 3 inches difference in the ratio is something that we all have to really keep as something that's important.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, we'll move to our discussion. Okay. Vice Chair Bland, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, so this is a pair of buildings that were originally built as a row house. They were combined and converted into commercial building in the 20th century. And then throughout the 20th century had subsequent facade alterations and no longer, you know, they have a metal cladding on the facade now. And and in 2008, so I guess about 16 years ago, we issued a permit for a window replacement with a certain set of proportions that are shown on the drawings on the screen. And the windows that were installed at the second and third floor have a different set of proportions. The windows otherwise would have been eligible for a staff level approval, but for the proportions. And so because they don't meet the rules for a staff level approval, we are looking at it today. And I think that we can factor in points that the applicant made, but also the fact that this is an altered building over time and what, you know, I think that the idea of this as a converted row house with a commercial facade, a later commercial facade, speaks to the kind of development history in this particular historic district. But, you know, the question is, do the windows relate to that commercial facade? And do they have to be the exact proportions that were shown in order to be appropriate within this historic district, which does have other commercial facades, both small and large. And then finally, I think as Corey pointed out, we think that the original drawings may have been slightly off as well. So they might have been an idealized version of what the window pre-existing window was and the proposed window. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Master, would you like to start this one? I'm going to switch it because she read for you last time.
Okay.
You're gonna read for her.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that, the proportions are a little bit off, but I think that we can let it go. I think that it's been altered significantly over time. And I think from the street, if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, I think that you wouldn't find it problematic.
Okay. Commissioner Jefferson.
I have difficulty with these issues because I think people are smart enough to know what they're doing. This has been 18 years. So there's a lapse of time that I can squirm out of this one.
Okay, right. They may not last much longer. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree with the other commissioners. The only thing I would say, since I think the original proportions were better, if and when the windows are ever replaced, they should be replaced to match the original, not these existing. But I think their point that throwing out perfectly good windows is, for what I see as fairly minor, is valid.
Okay, Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, just to judge this based on the merit, meaning that if this is a new application today, I can find it appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Bland?
Yeah, I'm in Commissioner Ginsburg's camp. I think throwing out these windows for a few inches is not right, and I think it's close enough.
And I think it still has a commercial character. Okay, Commissioner Lutfi?
I agree.
Okay, Commissioner Chu?
I agree.
Okay, all right, so I think we're all in agreement on this one, and I'm going to have Commissioner Ginsburg read this one. I should do the last.
Hold on 1 second. Starts LPC 24-05350, 924 Broadway, Ladies Mile Historic District. A mid-20th century commercial style building converted to 2 row houses, originally built in 1854 and later altered multiple times in the first half of the 20th century. Application is to legalize the installation of metal windows in non-compliance with permit minor work 09-4532. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special thank you. Special architectural and historic character of the Ladies Mile Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the configuration and finish of the windows as installed recalls that of the historic windows, that in keeping with the windows historically found on buildings of this age and style, that the buildings have been highly altered over time, and the changes in details and configuration from the early 20th century windows seen in historic photographs does not call undue attention to the installed windows, and the work does not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the historic district. However, I would note that if the windows are ever replaced, this should not be used as a precedent for the replacement windows.
Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, thank you. We'll move to the next item.
All right, I'm going to read in the next 2 items. They are listed as separate items, but will be presented simultaneously. It's hearing items 2 and 3. Public hearing item number 2 is LPC 22-09644, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 149, Lot 5, 83 Chambers Street, aka 65 Reed Street in the Tribeca South Historic District. This is an Italianate style store and loft building built in 1853 to 54 and altered in 1899 by William E. Bloodgood. And the application is to replace windows and storefront and entrance infill, install a canopy, construct a rooftop addition, and alter the lot line facade. And public hearing item number 3, LPC 22-09645, an application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 149, Lot 6. This is 85 Chambers Street, aka 67 Reed Street, also in the Tribeca South Historic District. This is a store loft building originally built in 1856 to 57, altered in the early 20th century commercial style by Wolins and Bull in 1925 to 26. And this application is to replace storefront infill and windows, remove fire escapes, install a canopy, and construct a rooftop addition.
Hello, my name is Michael Leocata with Greenberg Farrow.
Sarah Grissom from Greenberg Farrow.
We're representing United American Land for 8385 Chamber Street. It's an Italianate 5-story building that we're converting and turning the building into a residential building, complete, but to make it complicated, we are combining the 2 separate properties, but with one egress court and elevator. I'll get into that a little bit, but for the most part, the the project scope for the Commissioner's review is basically 4 separate facade treatments that are distinct and different at both the 83 side and on Reed Street. These are through lot buildings. It might be best to describe existing and proposed for items for your review. This is, on the left is 85. This is the building that's being converted. We're proposing on removing all of the windows and storefronts. The community board had spoke of a potential item for your review, which is the center windows on 2, 3, and 3, 4, and 5, where we're going from a tripart opening to a mold together 1/1 double hung windows scenario that is desired by our ownership group for continuity within the residential units. On the second floor, we have a proscenium of limestone that's uncovered. We're proposing on keeping the aperture and cleaning and restoring, patching, repairing the stone. And then obviously at the Chamber Street ground floor storefront, we have openings that are being removed, keeping the columns on the sides of cast iron on the 83 side, and allowing for 4 separate tenants. On the proposed 3, 4, and 5 on 83, it's an existing stucco building where we're proposing on keeping it stucco, patching, repairing, and painting to bring it to its current condition. Obviously, on 83, we're proposing on removing the fire escapes, the baskets, and any other additional attachments, ladders, whatnot. And keeping the fenestration openings for the second floor, which is surrounded in cast iron decorative elements, and it's set back. And in the detailing it later in the presentation, you could see how we're handling that, but we're trying to keep to the original section profile. Go to Reed. So on Reed, similar type of situation, except for at the, we'll start from the ground floor first. We're chopping the slab and lowering it, proposed to, and setting it back 7 feet into the building so that we could have ADA entrances. This is the residential side. Both doors on 65 and 67, the westernmost, are residential entries, and then the retail entry is a floor through ground floor retail situation. We are preparing on, or proposing on, replacing a removed cornice, this dark surround with cast iron because it was removed. Additionally, we're removing both fire escapes, we're proposing, and on the 65 side, we're proposing on reopening, masonry openings to provide a 4th window in the first story. Additionally, after review with staff, it was found on a photo just recently that we're proposing aluminum clad wood 4/4 arch tops. That is something else that we're proposing that we believe is appropriate. What you also are seeing is the removal of street fronting bulkheads. That one over there on Reed is an elevator that's being abandoned. So we're preparing on cleaning up the rooftops. However, when we are adding a new core, so in speaking to the rooftop renovation, right now it's a hodgepodge of levels and street fronting bulkheads. What we're proposing on is a centrally loaded scissor stair and with an elevator core. So although it's tall, right now it's 24 feet above the finished roof. it is centrally located. Like I said, it's away from the street front, so the street views of it are diminished. It's not as bad as it looks in elevation, dead elevation. But we could go through certain items as the okay. Let's talk about colors and scheme. So we have stucco on the right for 85, and we're cleaning brick. We're redoing cornices, and I just wanted to show the. Oh, okay. Just want to make sure that, we are proposing the removal of the fire escapes, and there are some decorative items, elements on them. Community board we're talking about it, and then basically said that it was appropriate to remove them, but I just want to bring it to your all's attention. Where I'm for the street views of the yeah, we did a bulkhead mock-up. Additionally, to create the street fronts, the legal light and window, we are actually removing floor area from the project in the center and creating a light well. And also with that one means of egress, the centrally located scissor stair, there's a series of approved CCD ones on Appendix 16, which explains all of this and how it's being accomplished. This is the lot line, east-facing facade, where we're proposing lot line windows, which match the windows that are adjacent on the street fronts. We're parging that existing brick, and then on the new walls, the inward-facing courtyard walls, we're using obviously a stove power wall, which meets energy code and whatnot. Here's a bit of the detailing of our setting back the storefront entries at Chambers. Here's showing the decorative elements on the cast iron and how we're respecting that, and now we're setting windows in so it's exposed again to the exterior. Again, this is the detailing of concern of the tripart to double hungs. They're molded together, and the proposed daylight openings and whatnot. This is Reed Street, and the drop slab and the residential entries, and how we're dealing with entry into it, and then two proposed canopies that delineate the street, the house number, and the residential entries. And it's we took this detail from neighboring buildings for appropriateness to just make sure that we're not doing anything out of step. Again, we want to talk about that central bulkhead and its visibility, and you can see the view and the mock-up as you see from the street. Again, that bulkhead on the corner is being removed, so you're actually removing something and putting something back that's probably less obtrusive. Again, here's some more street views of the bulkhead, and that's the visibility of it. So this is also from the rooftop, just showing the elements as you said in the building, what's sitting up on the roof. But that's our presentation, if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So going from the tripartite to the double window, is the reason for that you're dividing behind it and you wanted a mullion there?
Yes, and by having a tripart, when you're in a residential space, you would have a window that's.
Right. Did you look at going to 4 windows, 4 casement instead, which would have gotten that but might have been more in keeping with the existing.
We did not.
Okay, thank you.
Right, other questions? Okay, let's see if we have public testimony, and I'll note that there is no one in the room to testify, so I will turn it over to Gregory Kala to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. If you would like to testify on this item, please click the raise hand button now. I say we have one hand raised in the meeting, that being Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this proposal largely sensitive and appropriate. Our one comment is that the central window bays on the top 3 stories of 85 Chamber Street should be single panels of glass, as per the historic condition, rather than dual sets of double-hung windows, as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lynn Funk from the Victorian Society of New York. Lynn Funk, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Lynn Funk for the Victorian Society, New York. The proposed rooftop additions, changes to the lot line facade, and new window openings in the lot line are modest, well-designed, and appropriate. We think the decorative fire escapes on Reed Street facade should be retained. Reed Street is narrower than Chamber Street, giving the fire escapes a more impressive presence. Also, there are more remaining fire escapes on Reed Street. We note that cantilevered ladders were present on Reed Street fire escapes at the time of designation, but have been removed and replaced with simple drop ladders. The paired double hung windows proposed for the wide middle bay of 85 Chambers are not appropriate. The 1920s alteration had large single panes of glass at the 3 upper floors. A narrow transom was incorporated at the 3rd floor window. These large single windows are important to the character of this facade. Some divisions are possible, but the effect should be of a large single window. Paired double hungs work against this effect. Finally, as always, we object to the single side lights on some of the ground floor doors. These have no historic precedence and appear to like very contemporary insertions. Where double door leaves are too narrow or side clearance is needed for access reasons, a better solution is to install automatic door actuators. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 1 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you very much. So would you like to respond to those comments?
I would say
And feel free to refer to slides
Yeah.
if you want to in your response.
back to the Reed Street fire escapes. We also believe that if the commission sees appropriate, that we would retain maybe the baskets and remove all the ladders and other attachments. It is a sleepier street and the fire escapes lend to a coziness that I think is appropriate. But that's just, an idea, and I'm not gonna.
Okay.
The sidelight issue is something that we didn't really explore too roundly. I think we're pretty much hemmed into the planning. It's very, very tight that we need to accommodate the Chamber Street 4 entries. I mean, it's 4 entries in 50 feet is pretty tough. But that's my response.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
I have a note here saying that I think it's a community board was against the canopy. Why?
I don't remember if it was anything specific about being against the canopy. They just wanted to see the views of it and what it would look like on the street and how far it would stick out.
Correct. We produced just straight on elevations and you couldn't get an idea of the depth. So that's why we did those later axons, dark, but you at least see them projecting out. Yeah, we did. That was the inspiration. That's the neighborhood, the 71 Reed.
So moved.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing's closed and we'll begin our discussion. And this is for components at the ground floor and upper floors and at the roof, all together to combine and adapt or to renovate these two buildings. So it includes a combination of wood and metal storefronts at the ground floor of both the Reed and Chambers Street facades, barrier-free access ramp, removal of fire escapes, although the applicant has said with the decorative baskets, they'd be open to keeping the baskets and just removing the ladders. And then the window replacements above and the mechanical and core bulkhead, which has some visibility. So we'll begin our discussion. Vice Chair Bland, would you like to start this one?
I think this is nicely done. I'm not usually a fan of fire escapes. I think it's great to remove them, but in this case, I think they do add a bit, and the applicant has already suggested saving the baskets, which I think would be a good solution. So otherwise, I'm fine with it.
Commissioner Lutfi?
I concur.
Okay. And Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think this is a good proposal.
Okay. Commissioner Master?
Agreed, appropriate.
Commissioner?
Agreed.
Okay. Agreed, Commissioner?
Well, I would suggest for two reasons, looking at either 2 or 4 casements on that front facade. One is it'd be more energy efficient, and 2, maybe more importantly, it might be more appropriate. But in general, I can support this, even if that isn't.
Okay, and Commissioner Chen, you are comfortable as well. Okay, all right, so I think we can make a motion to approve this. We can ask you to explore the casement option at the upper floors, but I think we have enough to support it as is. And so Vice Chair Bland, would you make the first motion? And I won't have you do the second one. Unfortunately, I've scribbled on mine. Maybe Gina can share hers.
Okay. Sorry. In the matter of 83 Chambers Street, also known as 65 Reed Street, Tribeca South Historic District. Let's see, this is an application to replace windows in storefront and entrance infill, install a canopy, construct a rooftop addition, and alter the lot line facade. I recommend approval. I'll also note that the building scale, style, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Tribeca South Historic District. I also note that the cast iron frame window, show window installed on the second floor of the Chambers Street facade was the result of an 1899 alteration. Recommend approval, noting that the fire escapes on both Chambers Street and Reed Street facades are of later design with limited decorative elements, and their removal will facilitate repairs to the facade and will not diminish the special architectural or historic character of the building. That the proposed 1/1 double hung windows at the upper floors of the Chambers Street and Reed Street facade is in keeping with the configuration and operation of windows in early Italianate buildings with significant late 19th century alterations in this historic district. Good Lord, this is a lot here. Pneumonia recovering here. I'll get through it. That the work at the show window at the second floor of the Chambers Street facade will restore the size of the opening, return it closer to the historic. Can I just read this thing?
Yeah, it should be good.
All right, appearance, re-expose the returns of the cast iron piers on both sides of the opening and the modest change in configuration, including bottom panels and operation, will allow the adaptive reuse of this building to residential while maintaining the commercial character of the facade. That the removal of modern storefront infill and accretions will eliminate unsympathetic alterations that detract from the significant architectural features of the building without causing the removal of any historic fabric. That the proposed storefront and entrance infill on the Chambers Street facade featuring dark gray painted metal transoms, display windows and panel bulkheads and doors will be in keeping with the historic storefront infill found at buildings of this style, type, and age in terms of general configuration, proportions, material, finish, and details, and the inclusion of an integrated metal sign band will hide an existing drop soffit condition behind the transom and provide the base of the building with an area of signage. That the proposed storefront and entrance infill at the Reed Street facade featuring wood paneled bulkheads and doors and metal display windows and transoms will be in keeping with historic storefront infill found in buildings of this style, type, and age in terms of general configuration, proportions, materials, finish, and details, and will restore the top of the opening to its historic location, and that the combination of materials will not be discernible when painted. That the removal of the steps and the lowering of the base of the storefront infill at the Reed Street facade will provide barrier-free access to this facade in the least intrusive manner possible. That the proposed gray finished metal canopy featuring pin-mounted numbers and letters at the Reed Street facade will be simple in design and well-scaled to the entrance, thereby remaining a discrete presence at this facade, and that the precedence of for commission-approved canopies of a similar scale and type exist on the block. That the Reed Street facade had been coded prior to the designation of the historic district, and that the proposed tan color is harmonious with the other lighter color facades in this streetscape. That the creation of a light well in the east lot line wall will not remove any significant architectural features and will only be seen from public thoroughfares and limited vantage points, and will provide the light and air needed for the adaptive reuse of the building. That the removal of the existing elevator bulkheads and their replacement with a taller bulkhead at the center of the roof will reduce the overall amount of visibility of utilitarian rooftop accretions from public thoroughfares, and that the proposed stucco clad rooftop additions, metal railings, and mechanical enclosures, which will be visible along Chambers Street and Reed Street, will be in keeping with the typical utilitarian roof accretions in this historic district and will not call undue attention to themselves. And then are we saying that the baskets of the fire escapes?
Yeah, that's actually up for 85 here.
Not on this, okay. And the window that Mark was talking about is also on,
Encourage that. We have the votes for it as presented.
oh, okay, all right. So that'll be off the record, okay. The end.
No, now there's another one.
No, I'll
Not
do
for
the other
me.
one, but Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Oh, me, aye.
He's exhausted. Okay.
I am, wiped out.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi, Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, and I'll do the next one, so I'll spare you.
We're not told that reading aloud is a principal requirement in this study.
All right, in the matter of docket number 2209-645, 85 Chambers Street in the Tribeca South Historic District, a store and loft building originally built in 1856 to 57 and altered in the early 20th century commercial style by Wallens and Bull in 1925 to 26. This is an application to replace storefront infill and windows, remove fire escapes, install a canopy, and construct a rooftop addition. And I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Tribeca South Historic District. I also note that the Chambers Street facade was completely rebuilt in 1925 to 26. And I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the removal of the modern storefront infill and accretions will not eliminate will eliminate unsympathetic alterations that detract from the significant architectural features of the building, that the proposed storefront and entrance infill will be in keeping with historic storefront infill found at buildings of this style, type, and age in terms of general configuration, proportions, material, finish, and details, that the proposed storefront and entrance infill at the Reed Street facade will restore the top of the opening to its historic location, that the proposed restoration of the storefront cornice at the Reed Street facade is based on photographic documentation of the historic condition and will reintroduce an important compositional feature to the facade, that the solidity of the GFRC material and the painted finish will allow the new storefront cornice to read as cast iron, that the removal of the steps and lowering the base of the storefront infill at the Reed Street facade will provide barrier-free access at this facade in the least intrusive manner, that the proposed gray finish metal canopy featuring pin-mounted numbers and letters at the Reed Street facade will be simple in design and well scaled to the entrance, and thereby remaining a discrete presence at this facade. And there is precedence for commission-approved canopies of this size and type on this street. That the proposed window assembly at the second floor and the single and paired double hung windows at the third through fifth floors of the Chambers Street facade will recall the historic commercial fenestration while facilitating the operational needs of the residential adaptive reuse of the building, that the proposed configurations for the windows at the second through fifth floors of the Reed Street facade featuring multi-light double-hung metal-clad wood windows with a wider center muntin will be in keeping with the configuration of the historic windows, and the change in material will not be discernible from public thoroughfares. That the ladders and stairs at the fire escape at the Reed Street facade do not feature any decorative elements, and their removal will facilitate repairs to the facade and will not diminish the special character of the building. That the removal of the existing elevator bulkhead will eliminate bulk from the roof, and the proposed stucco-clad rooftop addition with metal railings and a mechanical enclosure will be minimally visible from south of Chambers Street and north of Reed Street, and that the proposed railings at the roof will be the minimum height required to comply with code and will be minimally visible over a stepped parapet at the Chambers Street facade and the cornice at the Reed Street facade without diminishing these features. However, I recommend that the decorative portion of the fire escape baskets be retained, and the applicants can further explore the window configuration with the wide muntin to explore the casement operation. Right, Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
And Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg, Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Right, that's approved. Thank you. Thanks. We'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 4, LPC 24-04551. an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 497, Lot 1, 536 to 538 Broadway, aka 530 to 538 Broadway in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. This is a store building designed by DeLimos and Cords and built in 1902. The application is to establish a master plan governing the future installation of wall murals and artwork.
I'm Kate Raggett. I'm the preservation consultant on the project, and joining me online will be two other people from the project team, from the design team.
Kate, can we just ask you to speak a little closer to the
yeah.
microphone,
This-
only because the people on Zoom can't hear us very well?
So for the people on Zoom, I just introduced myself. I'm Kate Raggett, and then I have my two colleagues who are already on Zoom. There we go. Okay. So I'm here today to talk about 530 to 538 Broadway. We are located in the Soho Cast Iron District, and as you can see here on the map, we're located on the northeast corner of Spring Street and Broadway. And in fact, we are actually looking at three distinct buildings. The southernmost building is 530 Broadway on the corner of Spring and Broadway, 532 to 534 Broadway, and then 536 to 538 Broadway, which is the northernmost building. And as you can see here in the Sanborn map, it's actually, the northernmost building is actually an L-shaped building that wraps around and has an entrance both on Broadway and on Spring Street. All three of these buildings, while there are three distinct buildings, were owned by a single company since the 1920s, and as they transferred ownership over the past 100 years, have basically always been regarded as a single property, or rather three buildings on a single lot or on a single property. So that's kind of why we are looking at all three of them together. And that's the case today. All three buildings are owned by the same entity. These are two photos of the buildings today. And as you can see, they all were constructed around the same time, around the turn of the 20th century, all with commercial ground floors and then similar material palettes of a buff beige masonry, brick masonry on the upper floors or limestone. They all have a rusticated base and then typically had light industrial manufacturing on the upper floors. They all have kind of similar detailing, cornices and things like that, although each of them are clearly distinct buildings. What we're here today is to propose a mural master plan that would be located on the northernmost building. So that would be that L-shaped building that I showed before. On the northernmost facade of that building, on the secondary facade, we are proposing a master plan for public artwork on this facade. And so I'm just going to run through the proposed criteria that we're looking at. As I noted, we're looking for the artwork to be located on a secondary facade that's plain brick. The artwork would not cover or include any of the windows and wouldn't detract from any significant architectural features on the building. It would be set back from the primary facade by 3 feet and then 2 feet from the roof line, so down 2 feet, and then 2 feet in from the windows that are located in the middle of the facade. We're proposing that the artwork would be 2D and executed with paint. It would cause no damage to protected architectural features. We're proposing that the size would be approximately 50 feet wide and about 65 feet high. And we would submit a written waiver signed by the artist each time there would be a new mural. We're proposing that the artwork would be changed every 12 months and that the master plan would be valid for up to 6 years, after which we would come and likely seek reapproval. I want to emphasize here also that we are not looking at signage. We are looking distinctly at artwork here. And in fact, because we're located in a manufacturing district, and this location we're looking at is 70 feet higher than the ground floor, we are not even allowed to do signage. So this really is artwork. It's not signage disguised as artwork.
So a little bit more about the history of the buildings. I mentioned all of them were constructed around the turn of the 20th century. And you can see here throughout the 20th century, the buildings really maintained a lot of their historic integrity. You know, I would say primarily the changes that have been made have been along the ground floor at the commercial spaces, and then some minor changes as fire escapes were added and then removed throughout the 20th century. And I think one really significant characteristic of these buildings and many buildings in this area of Soho is that historically they had kind of a profusion of signage that had a really, really graphic nature. And so you can see starting around the turn of the century and then throughout the early aughts of the 20th century, you know, part of what the buildings were doing is they were announcing who and what was being done inside. And at times, this graphic signage, I would say, bordered on artwork. And you can see on the rightmost image, that's the corner of 530 Broadway. Sometimes this artwork, this signage, artwork, was three-dimensional, you know, with this brush that was advertising the brush factory that was inside the building. And there was actually, you know, some real signage on the building on this north facade. We can see the remnants of it already in for the tax photos that were taken in 1939 to 1941 on this north facade of the building. Even then, it was quite difficult to see what was there. We anticipate that the signage was probably done several years earlier and was already faded by this point. So we've outlined the general area where it appears that the signage was located. But, you know, since then, artwork has really had an increasing presence and importance in Soho. Starting in the 50s, 60s, and through the 80s and 90s, as manufacturing left the area, artists started to move in, and they really used the urban environment and especially the outdoors as part of their space for creating artwork. And public artwork became really important. And so we see here some examples of artwork in Soho that took advantage of public space, whether it was sculptures at intersections or embellishing the sidewalk in different ways. And another really important part of this was public murals. And the City Walls program was started in 1967, and then in the 70s merged with the Public Art Fund. And it was really about beautifying parts of New York City that were seen as derelict or in need of kind of some improvement. In terms of kind of the aesthetics and kind of bringing some hope and kind of attention to buildings that were starting to be in a state of neglect. And so what the City Walls program did is they worked with 28 different artists during this particular period, and they developed more than 50 murals throughout the entire city. Many of those murals were concentrated in downtown Manhattan, and many of them were located in the Soho Historic District. And so here I'm showing 5 of those murals that were located in Soho. Unfortunately, only 2 of them still are extant today, and that's the 2 on the right, so the wall by Forrest Myers at 599 Broadway, and then the Trompe-l'œil mural by Richard Haas, which is on Prince and Green, which was recently restored. The other 3 are unfortunately no longer extant. And so we're kind of trying to look back to this period where public art and murals really enlivened the city. And so as part of that, 530 Broadway has already made a commitment to artwork. In 2021, we renovated the lobby of what is really 536 to 538 Broadway, and we presented before LPC in, I think, December of 2021 for the renovation of the lobby, and in particular, this lobby entrance. So what you see on the right is the entrance to the lobby, and then what you see on the left is a photo of inside the lobby where the team has worked with local artists to create a lobby that incorporates contemporary art. And so, you know, the point here is that the owner of this building is committed to artwork. They see it as an important part of this building and of the neighborhood. They've already established this inside their building, and they really want to bring this commitment to the exterior of the building. And I should point out that, you know, the exterior is a location where other owners might put some kind of signage or advertising. And really here, we want to bring artwork to the neighborhood. And so I just want to show a couple of precedents here of other locations that have LPC approved murals or LPC approved mural master plans. Top left is 190 Broadway, which has a mural on the water tank. That's part of a master plan that is an individual landmark. On the right, top right is the Gilded Lady mural, which is on 236 Fifth Avenue. And that's not a mural master plan, but it's on a building that's in a historic district. On the bottom left is a rotating mural master plan at 95 Horatio Street. And that's a mural master plan that is done in collaboration with the Whitney. And I believe that is on its second cycle of master plan approval from the LPC. I believe the original one was 6 years long, and they recently went through and got approval for a second round. And then on the bottom right is in the Greenwich Village Historic District, and that's a rotating mural master plan on a restaurant on 7th Avenue. What we wanted to do then is also to understand how far away this mural would be visible. And it turns out that it is never completely visible, or this northern facade, I should say, is never completely visible, but it is most visible when you're standing on the other side of Broadway. And that's what you see on the top left in maroon or magenta at 561 Broadway. It is visible, however, from as far away as Broadway and Waverly Place, and that's on the bottom right. And so with that information in mind, what we did then is we mapped each of these kind of visibilities over the elevation of the entire facade, northern facade. And that's what you see on the left here. And so essentially what we realized is that obviously the most visible portion of the facade is kind of what you see on the screen, what I'll call the upper right-hand portion of the northern facade. And so that's where we are concentrating the mural. And we also wanted to think about, where that historic painted signage was. And so we're essentially placing the mural in a very similar location to that, as well as considering what is going to be visible from the street and to an extent what is visible from being inside some of the adjacent buildings. Because if you're on some of the adjacent buildings, you do actually have sight lines onto this facade. And so what we're proposing is what is outlined in green, so that the extent of the artwork is about 3,200 square feet. So that's about 50 feet wide, like I mentioned earlier, and 65 feet high. And so you'll see that from the street, the portion that is highlighted in maroon or in magenta is what is visible from the street. And what's outlined in green are the dimensions of the mural. And the effect is that we are looking for is that the mural is kind of full bleed. It goes as far to the edges as possible. But again, we are setting back from the primary facade and any elements on it by 3 feet, and then 2 feet down from the parapet and 2 feet in from those windows that are located in the middle of this facade. So this is a mock-up of what I showed before. Magenta is the extent of visibility of this northern facade. And then what's outlined in green, it would be the location of the mural on this facade. And then finally, we wanted to share a list of potential artists that we are looking at potentially working with. Most of these artists are located here in New York, and they're all kind of contemporary artists. Some of them, have been working in New York City for decades and really kind of connect back to that earlier history that I mentioned. And, if there are questions, I do have a section at the end where we kind of have compiled a list or some visuals of each of their work that is representative of what they do. Okay.
Thank you. Any questions, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Chu.
Really more for us, because I don't know so much of the history of how we regulate painted signage. Do we distinguish between a mural art and advertising and how it's executed?
Yes, we have, and I actually will ask Mark to talk about our regulatory role here.
Yeah, so we have always regulated signage and art, and we've treated them, differently over time. So we have rules now for both. But master plans like this is something for art we need to come to the commission about. So in the past, we looked at painted wall signs, and we started by trying to define area on the wall, and we originally said you couldn't be painterly, and we had a color restriction. Then we backed away from that and realized that it was just too difficult to regulate. And we focused more on the size and location as a way to make sure it didn't just detract from architectural features. Art, we have treated similarly, because we're not here to regulate content. We don't want to regulate content. So the goal here is to identify physical parameters and like both the size, location, but also the fact this is painted, not three-dimensional, that kind of thing, that will allow us to say whatever goes up there, we don't think will detract from, you know, any architectural features. And given this particular district's, you know, history with the arts, you know, that is consistent with sort of the history as well. So that would be the way to think about it. Is that answering your question?
Not really. I guess
Okay.
my question is more specific. We had talked about in past proposals that there was a requirement to do a black or white band around
Right.
the actual.
So the sort of criteria that we established as a commission and now is codified in a rule for staff approval for signage has very specific
Yeah.
dimensions,
Percentage of wall.
percentage, border. We have not applied that. So this is why when we've looked at art differently. So we have not applied those same criteria for in evaluating painted murals and artwork. And so, for example, the mural at in Madison Square North, which I think was 236 Fifth Avenue, would not meet those rules that we have for advertising signs.
Right.
In
The
terms of
Gilded
its-
Lady does not have a border, which is why I like it.
That's
But I'm
right.
just saying, I
Right.
I wanted to know if there's a distinction between art and.
There is,
and
and so I
which there
think
is.
that
Okay.
we have allowed for greater flexibility
Good.
when it's art.
Okay, and
Yeah.
the other question just related to the general topic is, do we have a specific recommendation for paints used because of concern about the brick and its long-lasting ability? It's a surface layer, is it breathable paint so that it doesn't trap water, et cetera?
It's not something that we've specified, for example, in the commercial signage, painted wall sign provisions. Certainly a question that comes up a lot of times with you all and something the staff thinks about to make sure it does have high breathability. And I think there could be a time when there are so many layers on that it would be wise to start removing some before reapplication. But some of these are new enough where we haven't really encountered that directly. So I think it's something to, you know, make recommendations about here.
Yes.
But I would suggest that we should require a
I-
breathable masonry
too.
paint, and you can get it in any color.
Exactly. It's readily available. It's known pretty, I mean, most of the artists know about it, but I just worry about the
Yeah,
fabric, that's all.
I just to clarify, the staff would not approve a non-breathable coating like an elastomeric or something like that. I'm just saying there's
Okay.
not like a very specific product we've pre-approved or anything like that.
Okay,
We do look at those specifications.
thank you. That's it.
Other questions, Commissioner Jefferson?
Question on content. Is the artist work purely abstract, or would there be realistic work also?
I don't know if you want to go to the appendix and look at some of the
So, yeah,
examples.
let me go to the appendix here. And we'll just do a quick, I don't know if we can confirm, you know, what the content is going to be, but most of these are kind of graphic, more abstract work. So this is Daniel Arsham, work sample, Bridget Riley, Nate Lohman, Meryl Wagner, Virginia Yaramilo, Jennifer Judy, Stan Whitney. And I think that's the last one.
Mostly abstract. Thank you.
Yes, mostly abstract, but I don't think that we can say all of them will absolutely be abstract, but that's representative of what you see here.
All right, other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Lutfi.
Is someone doing fundraising to be able to do this? I'm just wondering how it's happening.
I will, perhaps Ed, Ed Hahn, who is here on behalf of the owner of the building, could respond to that. Ed?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. It would sort of be on us to cover it financially, essentially. As a landlord, I think, Kate touched on this, but we feel very strongly about investing in art. I think we sort of, for that reason, went above and beyond with even our lobby here, making it more akin to an art gallery than a typical office lobby. So, we're figuring that out on our end, but it would all be sort of financed by the landlord.
That's great. Okay, thank you.
All right, other questions? All right, not seeing any other questions, I will see if there's anyone in the room who would like to speak. And noting that there isn't, I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. If you would like to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button now. Okay, I do not see any hands raised on our attendees list. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval, provided that there is no advertising, no illumination, and no dimensional elements. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, are there any final comments you'd like to make before we move to our discussion? Okay, any final questions, commissioners? All right, so we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing's closed and we'll begin our discussion on the proposed master plan for artwork on the secondary facade of this building. The applicant has stated that it would be for 6 years, after which time they would reevaluate and come back to us if they choose to pursue a second master plan or other scheme. And, we've had a discussion about our approach to murals. We've also talked a lot about today and other days about the history of painted wall signs in this historic district, and then the later subsequent history of artwork on some of these artwork within this historic district. And some of the murals, 2 of them remain and actually have been protected through our regulation as significant features. So with that, we'll start our discussion. Commissioner Lutfi, would you like to start this one?
I mean, it's hard to be against a project like this. And in a neighborhood that had been known as a place where artists lived and created their art, and also where at one time a lot of the, galleries featuring the art of, young avant-garde artists were all here. So, I didn't really do that. Oh. That's one way to have a big impact.
We're moving next week.
Are we? So anyway, I feel like the parameters that have been laid out make sense. The timetable makes sense. I think we've approved similar timetables in the past. And I think it's going to be a wonderful contribution to the landscape of the neighborhood and the city.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I think it's a very thorough presentation. It's very clear, and I think it's totally appropriate. I also just appreciate all your studies for what you actually see, because we sometimes see proposals for big areas and there's no study on what you're actually looking at. Most of it's probably hidden by the buildings below. So yeah, great.
Commissioner Master?
Yeah, I think this is very exciting. I think the presentation was extremely well prepared. Congratulations on that. And I want to commend the landlord for going really out of his way and bringing this initiative and funding it. I think it's a huge enhancement for the neighborhood. So I'm very happy to support this.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson,
Appropriate.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
I think this is really great. Again, the landlord should be commended. I'd love to see more of this. It's what makes New York special, and have lived here pretty much my whole life. I remember seeing it much younger, a lot of the murals, and thinking how great they were.
Thank you, Commissioner Chen.
Likewise, yeah.
All right, and Vice Chair Bland.
Wonderful presentation, Kate. And nothing like one-way streets going downtown for this anyway. It's great.
Yeah. All right, I concur with all of those comments. You did a great job with the presentation, so thank you for that. I think it was laid out incredibly clearly and expertly, and also want to thank the owner for having the vision to do this and enhancing our streetscape and our historic district. So Commissioner Lutfi, would you make the motion?
In the matter of docket 24-04551, 536-538 Broadway, AKA 530-538 Broadway. So Cast Iron Historic District. Yeah. A store building designed by Dilemos and Cordis and built in 1902. The application is to establish a master plan governing the future installation of wall murals slash artwork. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed installations will be located at plain masonry and will not damage or obscure any significant architectural features, that the artwork will be located at a visible secondary facade where painted wall signs historically existed, that the artwork will be limited to two-dimensional painted installations, which is in keeping with the tradition of painted wall signs, that the artwork will not be illuminated, that the artwork will celebrate the legacy of artistic culture in Soho in the latter part of the 20th century and will not be used as advertising signs, that the proposed master plan will be valid for a period of 6 years, and the applicant will document every mural approved under the master plan, and that the artwork will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the historic district.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Approved.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you. Move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 5, LPC 24-06085, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 625, Lot 7501, 299 West 12th Street, AKA 614 Hudson Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is an apartment building designed by Emery Roth and built in 1929 to 31. And the application is to modify and create new masonry openings and install windows.
Hey, I'm Gordon Khan, architect, and I'm representing the shareholders in this company. I come before you with a matter of 3 windows. Let's see. Talking specifically about 299 West 12th Street, which is located on the north side of Abington Square. It's part of the group of buildings by the developer B&B, located in the West Village. There's also a group on 71st Street on the east side. This particular building was designed by Emery Roth, although not all of the buildings were designed by him. We're talking specifically about the setback floor, where the glazing had originally been irregular, and we're actually slightly regularizing. and then the floor above the setback floor, which is the penthouse level. You'll notice at the right of our photograph, there is a dropped double hung window that matches the size of a single one of the windows that are shown in pairs above. There had been a staircase originally also in the apartment that our shareholder now occupies at the left of this, but that staircase has been eliminated. And now there's just a narrow window that replaced it that's shown there. Our proposal is to replace that narrow window with a double hung window that matches the other double hung windows. And down below it on the setback level, where we have 3 windows, to now have 4 windows. We observed that at the penthouse and setback levels of almost all of these Bing and Bing buildings throughout the West Village, there is a lot of irregularity in the fenestration at the setback level. Things don't necessarily line up. And there's also a great deal of asymmetry at the penthouse level above them. These buildings document that. At the upper left, we have the existing south facade at 299 West 12th Street. Down below at the left side of this sheet is the existing facade of the building diagonally across Abington Square at 302 West 12th Street, where you can see that on the setback floor, the fenestration was originally irregular and continues to be irregular. Down below that, we have another example at a Bing and Bing building, and similarly to the right of the drawing, the 3 photographs that we have there, 2 Horatio Street, for example, and the building at Sheridan Square. These are original photographs. The upper right photograph is perhaps the most relevant, and it shows on the penthouse level the dropped window on the right side of the penthouse, and similarly, there was a dropped window on the left side of the penthouse level. However, there is no longer a staircase there, and so we simply cannot drop that window. So we're asking to please replace it with one that matches it but is raised up. Here again, you see pictures of what originally was constructed and what exists today at 299 West 12th Street. Most notably, the question of the window at the penthouse level.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions? All right. Not seeing any questions. I'll note there is no one present in the room to testify, and I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if there are any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. If you would like to testify on this item, please click the raise hand button now. Okay, I do not see any hands raised in our attendees list, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval, and I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Thank you. So I think if there are no final questions, and if you don't have anything else you'd like to add, we'll move to our discussion. Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So move. Sorry, so just say so move. All right.
So moved.
Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing is closed, and we'll begin our discussion looking at the window at the setback penthouse floor. Commissioner Chu, would you like to kick this one off?
Sure. I was looking at, essentially, there's only these couple openings, 3 openings. What's there now is not very balanced because of that little window that's there. I'm interested in what the rest of you all think. There's a recess that occurs on the sides, and there's a sort of central tower element. I can see that you referred to that as the recessed area of the facade. And I can see in your case studies how that is often treated slightly differently. The impact I'm just trying to look at is whether or not it upsets this sort of centrality that is created in this elevation, if it throws it off by putting it on the side and not doing it the same to the other window on the right. The ones below the openings don't bother me so much. I think they're not that visible. And there's an existing condition on the right bay of the central element that comes right up to that, just as you've symmetrical proposal on the left side. So I think that that's okay. My tendency is to feel okay about this because of the existing condition and the precedences that were shown. But I'd like to hear what my fellow commissioners think about that.
Okay.
Upper left window.
All right. Commissioner Master?
I think it's fine. I think it's asymmetrical now, and it'll be somewhat less asymmetrical. And also, it is set back, and it's pretty high up. So from the street, I think it's going to be minimally visible.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
Fine, I don't think it's
Commissioner,
chaotic facade.
all right. Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
Appropriate.
Commissioner Chen?
Given the context of the other windows, from the street level looking up, I don't think it will be that noticeable.
Vice Chair Bland? And Commissioner Lutfi?
Appropriate.
All right. Are you comfortable, Commissioner Chu, with that, or would you
Yeah,
rather? Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I-
So then if you'll feel comfortable making the motion, that would be great.
Okay, so let me just make sure I've got the right. Okay. In the case of LPC 2406085299 West 12th Street, Greenwich Village Historic District, an apartment building designed by Emery Roth and built in 1929 to 31. Application is to modify and create new masonry openings and install windows. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of Greenwich Village Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work at the setback portion of West 12th Street facade will only remove a limited amount of plain brickwork and will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features. That the masonry opening proposed to be enlarged at the upper penthouse floor was altered prior to designation in connection with the removal of an interior stair and the extension of the floor slab, which preclude the restoration of this window opening in its historic location. That the proposed enlarged opening at the upper penthouse floor will be the same size and shape as other historic window openings in this facade and will feature a window that matches the building historic windows in terms of configuration, details, operation, finish, helping to regularize and unify the fenestration pattern. That the proposed shifted and new window openings in the lower penthouse floor will only be visible from the public thoroughfares at a great distance, will create a regular pattern of punched openings, and will match the other windows at this floor. And that the work will not diminish the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District.
You and Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second?
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you. That's approved. Thanks. All right, we'll move to the next item.
All right, next item is public hearing item number 6, LPC 24-05555. An application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 856, Lot 7502, 225 Fifth Avenue, Madison Square North Historic District. It's a Beaux-Arts style store loft and office building designed by Francis H. Kimball and Ari E. Donnell, Associated Architects, and built in 1906 to 07. The application is to modify an entrance.
Hey, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Drew Hartley from Atchison Doyle Partners Architects, and I'm here to speak with you about modifications to the 26th Street entry at 225 Fifth Avenue. Quick overview, 225 Fifth Avenue was built in 1907. It's a Beaux-Arts style building, and it's primarily limestone, brick, and terracotta. Historically, it was a commercial building. And in 2004, it was converted to residential. So it's residential on floors above, and the first floor has retail spaces. 225 Fifth Avenue is in the Madison Square North Historic District, and here are some older photos of the building. It is just to the north of Madison Square Park, between 26th and 27th Street on Fifth Avenue. The scope of work that we're talking to you today about is modifications to the 26th Street entrance of the building. The primary residential entrance is on Fifth Avenue, and this is a secondary entrance to the residential portion of the building. You can see it in the photo on the right. Everything to the left of this entry is retail or ground floor. The existing entry is only used for emergency egress. It has a modern infill of stainless steel revolving door, a passage door, and a transom above, and stainless steel handrails below. Here's some details of current conditions. So this is elevation and section of the existing condition. And I'll jump to our proposed. So proposal is to take the stairs that are currently outside of this entry and push them inside the building and bring a new bronze door and transom down to the ground, activating this portion of 26th Street. We are also proposing to put 2 new sconces next to this entry. These sconces match the sconces that are at the primary entry of the building right now. And we have signage which says that the primary entry is on Fifth Avenue. Existing and proposed plans, the existing revolving door will be removed and new swing doors will be put in its place. Just for context, this is the primary entrance to the building on Fifth Avenue. Bronze is the primary material, so as you can see, the sconces here we're replicating on the 26th Street entrance. Signage is similar, and we're going with kind of a medium bronze color for the finish of the doors. For context, there are other doors on the building. These are the retail portions of the building, but we're really trying to keep in context with the residential entry. And for example, here's other examples of secondary entrances in the historic district. Other bronze clad doors, very similar in design to what we're proposing. So finally, on the left is the existing condition, on the right is what we are proposing. There is a dark recess on the existing condition that we are activating this entry and bringing those doors down to the sidewalk as part of this proposed design. We're adding a light to this entry on 26th Street. It's directly across the street is Madison Square Park. Just bringing a presence to this part of 26th will be a great addition for the building. And it's also an amenity for this building. They currently don't use this entry because of its kind of unsafe character, and we think this would be a great addition to them.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So when I first saw this, I thought you were doing it to create a handicapped accessible entrance. So given that those stairs, I presume, are original historic fabric, I can understand changing the door. I don't have a, why are you changing the stairs?
I think the primary reason is, as you can see on the existing, there is a dark recess at the top of these stairs. There's a landing there. We're trying to bring a presence down to the street and activate this part of 26th Street. And removing the stairs will help assist in that. Also for removing snow in the winter, if the stairs are inside, it's not an issue that we have to do.
Okay, other questions? Yes, Commissioner Chu.
And this, you said that it will be an entry? You said it was egress only initially.
Correct. So currently it's a revolving door and there's a passage door, which is egress only. It's all locked for security purposes because it's very hard to control a revolving door. We can control the passage doors in proposed design, being buzzed in by the front door, and it's able to be controlled for security purposes, and therefore it will be used, and residents can use it to come and go to the park.
So it will be a new entry as well, whereas now it's just an egress, you're saying?
Yes, it's all connected inside to the residential lobby.
Right.
It's just not used currently because of the function.
Huh, okay. And what is the material under the column element, which looks like the existing stoop material? What would that be? Because that'll be a remnant.
Right.
Left
We
over.
were proposing Deer Isle granite to replace that portion. It's currently concrete. We don't know exactly what is further in the facade past the concrete, but we are showing 0 inch for the face.
Did you ever consider ways of making it accessible as an entry on the inside?
There are challenges with how far we can push the stairs inside the building.
Right.
Because there are a cellar below it. And we really have space for a landing, and that's about it for the upstairs. Once you get.
And your width, your egress width?
We have enough width.
I'm just saying, if you have the width, you could put a partial stair and a lift on the side. I'm just wondering, because in the future, I can see another renovation that makes it ADA accessible. Just wanting to get there, because that would really make an improvement to the
Right.
residents. Is it? I
Yes,
didn't,
yes,
okay.
the front is the accessible.
Once you come in, you don't have another stair.
At the front entrance of it.
Okay.
Commissioner Jefferson.
You said the stairs are not original. And so when was these stairs put in? What date? You know,
Our understanding is that these stairs were original to the.
original to the building. So it's original fabric, the whole stair.
Yes, the concrete finish on them is not historic, but we believe the stairs were.
Original with the building.
All right, other questions? Okay, let's see if we have public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? I think not, so I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. There are currently no hands raised in the attendees list. If you would like to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button now. Okay, I do not see any hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 5 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right. Are there any final comments you'd like to leave us with before we move to our discussion?
Just a comment. I don't know, I won't flip through all the pages, but this is the only stair on this stretch of 26th Street. Our neighbor to the right has an at-grade entry. So it's a bit of an aberration on this street. It's not part of a series of stoops or stairs that are part of this.
Right, and there's no stair at the Fifth Avenue entry, and is there an entry on the north side?
There's a service entry.
And that's at grade. Okay, so there are no other stairs on this building either. It's not part of a vocabulary of stairs. Okay, other final questions? No, okay, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing's closed and we'll begin our discussion. So this is a proposal to remove these stairs. They are, as we understand it, likely original, but have been coated in something, there's a concrete finish, and modern doors. And the proposal is to remove the stairs and do an at-grade entry. And this is the kind of alteration we approve routinely to make a building or an entrance accessible. And so I'm not sure we can find it appropriate to make it accessible, but not appropriate in another instance. I mean, that's something to like parse through, I think, in our head, right? If it's appropriate, it's appropriate. So I think that's one way to think about it. And then further, the applicant has stated that it's not part of a vocabulary of stairs on this building. So that may help also, or on this street. Commissioner Chen, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I mean, this is, initially I thought the case was because, a lot of homelessness and the mental people like to live on. But in this case, given the applicants and the community board support, I can find it appropriate because seems like this is the only staircase that is projecting, not only on 26th Street, but it's on the free side of the building, that this remains the only one.
Okay. Vice Chair Bland?
It seems as if this is completely discretionary on the part of the owner, which is kind of a wonderful thing, because I think it's done for the sake of enlivening the sidewalk and eliminating kind of a barrier at the sidewalk as well. So great stuff.
Okay. Commissioner Lutfi?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's appropriate from a visual standpoint in terms of what the rest of the streetscape looks like. And also the materiality of what else is going on in this particular building. And there is, it is an accessible building from other entrances, including bringing stuff into the building.
Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, considering the condition of the existing stoop, it looks like it's completely cracked up. I think I'm okay with this. It's not a particularly significant element of the historic nature of this building. I do wish it was actually giving accessibility, though.
Yeah.
I really do. Apart from the fact the main entry is, I think we'd like to move to all entries being accessible these days.
Yeah. Commissioner Master?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if this is barrier-free access, this would have been a no-brainer, but I think it's appropriate.
Okay. Commissioner Jefferson?
When I saw this last night, and I said, look what stairs can do, make something really exuberant. I mean, that's a really interesting entrance, and removing them does that. But since they're putting it on the inside, and I didn't see any reason for not, I'd say it's appropriate.
Okay. And Commissioner Ginsburg?
So I think it's appropriate, but I would add that things like this done for accessibility have a clear reason, and I'm more flexible on what I'll accept when somebody needs to do it for accessibility than they're just doing it because they think it would look better or so on, but I don't have a problem with this.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. All right, Commissioner Chen, would you make the motion?
Yeah, just before I read the motion, I was just thinking the reverse. If I were to come today with an application and says I want to put in those stairs, would you approve it? In the matter of LPC 24-0555, 225 Fifth Avenue, Madison Square North Historic District, the application is to modify an entrance. Noting the building style, scale, materials, and details among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Madison Square North Historic District, I recommend approval, finding that the demolition of the existing non-fabric stairs, steps, and entrance infill will not damage or eliminate any significant historic features, that the stone water table will be extended to grade level, utilizing materials and profiles to match the historic, that the configuration and material of the proposed glass and bronze finished metal double doors and transom will be harmonious with other entry infill on this building, and that the building will not detract from the special architectural historic character of the building or the historic district.
All right, and Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion? Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you. We'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 7, LPC 24-05395. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1853, Lot 1, 272 to 276 Macon Street, aka 161 to 165 McDonough Street, in the Stuyvesant Heights Historic District. This is a Gothic eclectic style school building designed by Helmley and Corbett and built in 1924 to 27, and altered and enlarged in 1927 by George H. Streeton. The application is to install doors, signage, and rooftop fencing.
Thank you, commissioners, for hearing us today. My name is Edward Jose with Loci Architecture. The subject property is in the Stuyvesant Heights district. It's on the western portion. It's part of a complex of religious buildings on a corner through lot condition bounded by Macon Street to the north, McDonough Street to the south, and Throop Street to the west. These are photos, historic photos of the Macon Street side. It's a 3-story facade. These are the best photos we could get. It's a Victorian Gothic building characterized by random ashlar stone and limestone trim. The subject building is on the east side of the complex of buildings. It's a school. It was formerly a parochial school. It's 3 stories on the Macon Street side and 2 stories on the McDonough side. We are proposing new entrance doors on the Macon Street entrance, which is the main entrance. New entrance doors on McDonough side, which is a secondary entrance. And then also perimeter fencing around a proposed rooftop play area on the 2-story portion. There's a blow up of the play area on the roof. There's an existing FDNY platform for rooftop access. It's about 6 feet wide. The fence is set back 7 feet from the facade, and there's a parapet here, a gabled parapet on the McDonough Street elevation, and then the fence turns the corners and comes around and hits the 3-story portion. This is a proposed chain link fence, 10 feet high, vinyl coated, 1-inch by 1-inch material. Here's an elevation of it with showing that the height of the fence, top rail at 10 feet, intermediate rail at roughly 3.5 feet, and a bottom rail at the bottom. These are site sections. You look down here, it's from the south west corner at an oblique angle looking at the corner. Because of the height of the existing parapet, only a portion of the 10-foot high fence will be seen. And you can just see that it clips the corner right there. Here's a site section perpendicular to the McDonough Street entrance. Looking up, because of the height of the existing parapet, you will not be able to see the fence right in front of the building. This is a mock-up we prepared, 2x4 studs and orange snow fencing. So we made 2 panels, put it at the corner where it is. Here's the FDNY platform. So it's right at the corner here. And this is what it looks like from the southwest corner. Looking up this way, you can see a little, you can capture part of it. Because the parapet lowers to 3.5 feet, you can see more of it on the side, but you can barely see anything at the McDonough Street facade. Again, here at another oblique view perspective from the south east side. Again, you can see just because of the adjacent building, you can see a little bit of it as it turns the corner, but not so much from the front facade. This is a view from the Macon Street side, just looking through that little sliver of airspace between the neighboring building and itself. You can see just a little bit of a fence right there. This is the proposed detail. There are these currently 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch hollow steel section stub ups that were engineered that are anchored to the existing concrete roof slab, and we are proposing to slide over the 10-foot high posts and bolt them in place. This is a sample of the 1-inch by 1-inch black vinyl coated chain link fence. And this is an example of the manufacturer's product at a different site, but you can see the sort of transparency of the material, and really only the horizontal posts are really visible. Okay, now we're on to the proposed entrance doors. This is and signage that we're proposing. This is the McDonough Street elevation. The existing entrance has green painted hollow metal doors with small vision panels. This is the existing wood tracery at the pointed arch transom. And we are proposing to replace the doors with a raised panel design with larger glazing and simulated buttons, also in hollow metal. And the existing transom is to remain, and all painted just to match. And then this is the signage right here, which covers the existing engraved stone signage of Our Lady of Victory School, and this is the name and logo of the new school that's currently occupying the building. These are drawings of the existing and proposed entrance doors. Only the door leaves are changing. The frames are remaining. So the frames, hollow metal steel frames, door frames are remaining, and we're just changing the hardware and the door leaves. Here's the detail of the raised panel design. This is the view of the Macon Street entrance. The main entrance is the 3-story side. The entrance is set back under a covered portico. Here's again as a before and after, or existing and proposed. Here, same thing, existing hollow metal steel doors with small vision panels. The wood tracery transom is going to remain, and again we're just replacing the doors similarly to the McDonough side. The only difference here is there's a sort of a larger spandrel panel coming across because there's a room above this, and there's a floor slab at this level for this room here. And we're just adding some detail to line up with the vertical mullions above. Again, drawings of the existing proposed condition. Here the galvanized steel trim, just to line up with the existing, and the new doors with the raised panel design.
All right, thank you. Any questions, commissioners? Commissioner Jefferson? Did you have a question? Yeah.
Just 2 questions. On the signage panels, they seem to be an existing outline, and one you filled in, you put the signage in the outline.
Yes.
The other one, you cover it up the outline, right?
Yes.
So there's a difference. You push it, the
Yes, so-
signage differently, A and B side. And
Yes.
the other thing, the transom on the main door, is that wood or is that metal?
It's wood. I believe it's wood.
It's wood. Oh,
I believe it's the original wood.
original.
That's
Original.
painted on the exterior. The interior, I believe, is still wood color, right? Wood. Or is it not? I can't recall. Okay, it's wood.
It's wood. And that spandrel where you're proposing the metal trim, that's a wood spandrel, or is that?
I think
That's
as
metal.
well.
So it's a metal non-historic spandrel, and you're proposing the metal trim to help it relate to the wood transom. Okay. Other questions? All right, let's see if we have, yeah, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So it seems that the signage on one side exactly matches the stone panel below, and the signage on the other side doesn't. What is the reason for that?
Juan, you want to speak to that, or?
I'm Vaughn with DBI Projects, the owner's representation team. So in developing the design for the signage, we were looking at the size of and the framing of the boundary, and looking at the graphics and the branding of the school. So on one side, in some of our meetings with the community board, they had ushered us and suggested that on the McDonough side, that we try to conform the sign directly into the boundary of the existing Our Lady of Victory School. And for the Macon side, if we had just that rectangle, which is a more clean, more simple exterior outline, and it also gives us a good amount, it doesn't distort the branding of the school, because for the McDonough side, we had to compress it to get it within that shape. It allows us to actually keep the branding very within the proportions of the school itself. It also gives us enough surface area so that when we go into anchor, we are staying confined just to the joints, and we're not going into the stone itself. Thank you.
Right, other questions? Okay, let's move to public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'm going to turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a few hands raised in our attendees list. If you would like to provide testimony, please click the raise hand button now so I could call on you. The first person we'll be hearing from is Evelyn Collier from Brooklyn Community Board 3. So Evelyn Collier, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Evelyn Collier. I am in the matter of LPC 2405-395. I will read I'm representing Community Board 3, Brooklyn, and I will read the committee comments. The proposed rooftop fence will not extremely visible given the height and mass of the existing building. The material and finish are appropriate. The proposed new signage is not within the character of the historic architecture and appears squeezed into the area above the entrance. A ground sign that is not attached to the building, perhaps on each side of the doorway, will be more appropriate and potentially more visible to pedestrians. The proposed entry door conflict with the character of the architecture. The committee prefers to see painted wood doors panelized to allow for glazing, but more in style of the original door and in keeping with the architecture. Further research into the original door will be appreciated. Therefore, be it resolved, Brooklyn Community Board 3 supports the rooftop fence, but Community Board 3 objects to the proposed signage and door in its current configuration. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society of New York. The existing carved stone signs over the entrances were carefully designed as part of the entrance architecture. If they are covered with new signs, the new signs should be exactly the size and shape of the old. They should cover no more of the historic masonry. This will help retain the architectural integrity of the entrances. Another appropriate approach, and perhaps a better one, is to leave the existing signs alone and install modestly scaled sign boxes either inside the fence or affixed to the fences. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please state your name and unmute your line. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council.
HDC supports this application with the exception of the proposed signage, which we feel should fit within the historic signage configuration. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Matt Fischescher. Matt Fischescher, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. Hello, Matt Fischescher, are you with us?
Yeah, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, thanks again. I'm Matt Fischesser with Brooklyn Prospect Charter School. I just wanted to add a couple of comments regarding the notions about the signage. First, regarding the perimeter of the existing stone panels that are inset above entrances, they are actually not exactly the same size on both sides, and especially the distance of the stone pediment above the panel is much tighter on the Macon Street side than it is on the McDonough Street side than it is on the Macon Street side. We did study on both sides signage that conform to that sort of irregular, double rectangle outline as opposed to a single rectangle. And we were able to make it work in a legible way on the McDonough Street side, but not on the Macon Street side. We do also. I also would note that the existing signage, at least on the McDonough Street side, is the limestone is quite deteriorated, almost illegible, and we also feel that leaving the existing signage and putting other signage elsewhere could lead to confusion, because you basically have two different names of what the school is. Is it Our Lady of Victory or is it Brooklyn Prospect? And that's why we believe that even if we were to have signage elsewhere, we would want to have something covering that signage, similar to, I don't know if you're familiar with the Friends School in Stuyvesant Square, where they put frosted glass over the old Mason's symbols for that reason. So that would be our thoughts on the signage. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised in our attendees list. If you'd like to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button. Okay, no further hands raised, so I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you. I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
Sure. Yeah. Commissioners, if I direct your attention to these are the shop drawings for the signage. They've been developed, and the way, as you can see, because of the random ashlar pattern and trying to hit various mortar joints, I believe the rectangle would facilitate that. We did that on the Macon Street side, and for the assembly of it, you can see it's trying to cover almost following the profile of the existing limestone signage, except for the corners. We did change the McDonough side. We had it formerly different, previously different when presented at the community board, and we actually followed their recommendation there. So for the McDonough side, we did change the profile of this, because we had to make a modification to the signage for the leaf, a logo to remain, but this is what we had. So we tried to meet them halfway and provide that on the McDonough side.
And could you not use that approach on the Macon Street side?
Well, that's more of a technical issue, I think.
It's more a technical issue in manipulating the original intent of the branding of the school. Because in order, as we incorporated the comments that we got from community board, in order to incorporate those comments, we initially squashed the signage. Can you go? Yeah, that spacing that we have now fit the Brooklyn Prospect International Elementary School within is now 11 inches that we have tried to compress it into. And in order to compress that, we have this where the leaf is kind of coming out with you barely. It's, you don't actually, we can't go all the way back, but it's really hard to read the leaf in the way in which it's currently designed. But in order to try to uphold what is the design, the branding of the school, and I think the other thing about that, as we move forward, keeping possibly suggesting that we embed this new signage. This is a school that has been in this space of transition for a while. They have now, I think they've coined this being their forever home. And I think one of the comments that we have with the community board is that now that this school has established themselves within this building and they intend to be here for the next 30 years, I think it's incumbent that the students inhabiting this school feel a sense of pride and feel a sense of ownership in this building. So I think that's one of the reasons why we have veered away from having this double signage where they're walking into a building that says Our Lady of Victory School.
I understand that completely. So it's that once you squeeze it in, it sort of compresses what your usual sign looks like. And McDonough, so you did it on McDonough, but Macon is your primary facade. And so you want to have your sign on your primary facade. And are there signs currently on the fence that supplement this, or is this would this be the only sign?
I think temporarily they have just banners
Okay,
on the fence that will be removed.
I see. Got it. Okay,
I'd like to add that this signage is reversible. I mean, we can remove it.
yeah, got it. Okay. Any other final questions, Commissioner Master?
Yeah, I think what we find a little bit interesting about the sign is that the sign is on the building itself and it has the logo and the branding rather than just the name of the school. And what I'm wondering is when schools typically have their name on a building, do they typically put their logo on the building itself? I mean, I think that's what might be a little bit off-putting. Right. Well, I mean, that's part of the branding thing. If it was just the name of the school, I think that it wouldn't be as strange looking.
If I could add to that thought, I mean, this sign is a sign that you want to see in like a nice sign behind a fence. Yeah, with on 2 posts, but that is not what you want to see on this building in this location. It doesn't work with the architecture. It just doesn't.
Clashes. It
And
clashes. with
it's not what's done.
Okay. All right. Any other final questions or comments or thoughts, not comments? Yeah, please, Vice Chair Bland.
The Long Island Historical Society in Brooklyn Heights, a fabulous building, the first use of terracotta, I think, on a building in America, was, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, rebranded the Brooklyn Historical Society. And they just covered it over very simply without logos or without color, just covered it over. So there is a history of doing this.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, we have sort of 3 components to review here. We have the rooftop fence for a play area, which, as you know, we review rooftop play areas for school buildings and regularly approve them with some visibility. In fact, more visibility than is actually shown in this proposal. The second component is the replacement of the doors. They're non-historic doors, and they would be replaced with new doors of the same proportion with a multi-light panel above and a decorative panel below. And on Macon Street, just adding some decorative ornament into a non-historic spandrel. And then the last piece is the signage, which we've talked about a lot. And the commission has long had a history of approving, covering existing building signage for new tenants or new owners, recognizing that it is confusing to have the name of something that isn't actually the entity there. We have done it with new names, and we've also done it with just sort of blank panels, and then thought of signage elsewhere. So I think we've had a lot of discussion about the shape of the sign and conforming to the shape of the historic sign. So I imagine that's what we'll continue to discuss in our comments. Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to start this one?
I thought that the, where am I? The fence was sensitively done, really carefully thought through, and sensitively done. I thought the door was appropriate, and I thought the transom was appropriate, and I wasn't sure about the materiality, but I thought it was appropriate. And the signage system is where I fell off.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, are you, if they could conform to the size of the sign, is that?
If you look at the left-hand side, I mean,
Yeah.
they went through some effort to cut that, to make that way. And then you look at the rectangle and, you know, I'm looking for stuff that's just special and different. You know? If they could make it fit there, it would be just handsome, you know? Or if not, as another person said, just move it off the building.
Right, you can cover it with something
Cover it up in
that's
some-
limestone colored. Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree with Commissioner Jefferson.
Okay, Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I think it's not just the logo, but it's also the coloring, and I think that I share the same sentiment.
All right, Vice Chair Bland?
I'm fine with the fence. The door looks fine, but if it were made of wood and clad rather than just hollow metal, I think it'd be more energy efficient. And I can't go for the sign the way it is now, but the way we've been describing it, in some way where it's simply covered with just the name and no logo and color, I think that could work, working with staff.
With
perhaps.
no color?
I say with no color.
Okay, I mean, I do think that is a little more restrictive than we've been with other signs that
Is that right?
cover signs.
I
But,
just think this building,
okay,
some stone building with colors, is kind of odd.
okay, so no logo and color, okay, or color. Commissioner Chu?
y-
So,
Did you
sorry,
skip?
Jeannie, I skipped you, but I'm sorry, I'm just still wrapping my head around the sign. So do you feel the same way about the sign on the McDonough Street side? Okay. Commissioner Lutfi?
So I agree about the fence above. I also agree with Fred about the front door, that it should be made from a better material. Wood clad would be great. And it would be great if the design of it really fit this style of architecture that the Gothic style. I think in terms of the sign, I'm going to sort of step away from the top for a minute, because I really think this school needs a different kind of sign. Can be in more than one location of this building. And if you look at schools, they either, have them on, two stanchions and they go across, or they have a banner, or they're somehow attached as a plaque to the side of the building, all in ways that enable you to keep, or that the schools, and it would enable you to keep the branding of the building, of this new logo for the school. But I really oppose this idea of like sticking a piece of, feels like you're sticking a piece of adhesive on the top of this building, and it doesn't go. So is there a way to have something there? It would have to be very, very simple, and the color would have to be very understated, and the type and the font and the color of the background color would have to blend somehow with the building, the lighter stone color, and then, the font shouldn't be green or orange, or it should be something more understated, so it doesn't compete.
All right. And if they were to do just a sort of limestone colored sign that covered that panel with the name and no color, would you all be supportive of additional signs supplementing that has the logo on the fence?
Sure.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I'm sorry, were you done with
Yeah.
that? Okay. Yeah, okay, so the fence on the roof, I think is great. It'll give the students a lot of extra space. I think we're all on board with that. The front doors, I just think need a little help vertically. The Gothic style is a very vertical element, and I feel like something has to come through. So it's really more of an elevational. I agree with the others about the wood cladding. It's funny because in the old days, they used to clad metal on wood doors to give them fireproofing and strength, and now we're cladding wood onto metal doors so that give them decoration with the fireproofing. So it's a backward. But I do think it does speak to the character of the entry doors, which traditionally in a Gothic style would be wood. The signage specifically, I tend to agree. I think it's because of the way the existing building signage is integral to the masonry units of the facade. It's carved out. It is a part of the basic gravity stacking of the stone that it just feels inherently completely different to be pasting a board onto it. I think that's what we're all responding to. I would be open to many other graphic solutions to this that are freestanding, as some of the testimonies mentioned. And I think we might be okay if there's really an issue with confusion of maybe just blanking out the name. But I have to say, I don't really understand why that's such a big issue. It's obviously a historic old building, and old buildings have history. We're obviously often look at repurposing buildings to some other type of use, and that is a part of what's interesting about the building. So yeah, I think the signage is really my biggest issue here.
All right, Commissioner Master?
I agree with what everybody else said about the fence. I think the fence is fine. In terms of the door, I would defer to a lot of the comments that have been made before. Perhaps you can work with staff. In terms of the signage, I think that because of the colors and the logo on top, it looks a little bit like an advertisement or something. I just have never seen that in a school, not on the building itself. And I do completely support your idea of branding, but the branding has to be at the street level. It has to be on the fence or on a sign on a placard, which is what we typically see. I do agree that you do need signage above the doorway, but the signage, perhaps you can work with staff, needs to be very simple and plain and fit more into the context of the building.
Okay. All right. So I think I have a consensus here to go ahead, and I'll make this motion trying to capture everything that we've just discussed. So in the matter of docket number 24-05395, 272 to 276 Macon Street in the Stuyvesant Heights Historic District, a Gothic eclectic style school building designed by Helmley and Corbett and built in 1924 to 27 and altered and enlarged in 1927 by George H. Streeton. This is an application to install doors, signage, and rooftop fencing. And I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Stuyvesant Heights Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the presence of rooftop fencing for active recreation is often found on school buildings, and that the proposed black vinyl clad chain link fencing will be relatively transparent and typical of such rooftop accretions, and that proposed metal panels concealing the historic signs and propose metal panels at the two primary building entrances covering the religious signage panels will be secured to the facade at mortar joints and will be reversible and will not damage historic stone. However, I recommend that let me do this, and that the proposed doors will not eliminate any historic fabric and will be consistent with the age, style, and type of the building. However, I recommend that the metal paired doors be modified to be wood-clad metal, and that the details continue to be developed in consultation with the staff, and that the sign over the historic signs be simplified to match the shape and color palette of the existing signs, and that the applicant may work with the staff on additional signage off of the building, either on the fence or in the yard at the street level, to supplement that and to feature the logo. All right, Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland, Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi, Commissioner Master.
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
We'll move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 8, LPC 24-00186. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1090, Lot 3, 311 7th Avenue in the Park Slope Historic District Extension. This is a Queen Anne style store and flats building designed by Van Tool and Lincoln and built circa 1888. The application is to legalize the installation of storefront infill without LPC permits.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Frankel. I am the applicant to legalize the existing storefront conditions at 311 7th Avenue. Okay. Hit the buttons. There we go. Great. Okay, nope, I want to get that one. All right, in the 1940 tax lot photo, 311 7th Avenue's storefront is on the front property line with a recessed store entrance at the center. By 1980, the storefront has changed. Right half of the storefront is on the property line, and the left side, the entrance, is now recessed. Above is the storefront in 2012 at the time of designation, changed yet again, and now entirely recessed. Below is the existing condition storefront, once again changed, and this time, like the preceding 2012 change, no historical material was removed, the historical material having been removed long ago. Presently, the storefront appears to be on the front property line with a recessed entrance on the left. This work was performed prior to current ownership, which began in 2014. Please note that a course of action has been decided for the ramp, and that corrective action is being taken by the applicant, who is not me. And the signage is not part of this application. It has already been approved. We're just talking about the storefront. Above is 311 7th Avenue, flanked by adjacent 309 and 313. Below are enlarged images of 309 and 313. Above are 315 and 317 7th Avenue and 439 9th Street. Below is an enlarged image of the storefronts in the top image that are closest to 311. These are the existing conditions at the operable entrance door, existing conditions at the overhead canopy and at the curb, some dimensions, and existing conditions at the residential entrance. In requesting legalization of existing conditions at the storefront, we note its appropriateness. The 2012, at the time of designation, storefront was one in a series of changes. It did not preserve the special character of Park Slope's storefronts any more than what preceded it or now exists. The streetscape is varied, and the storefront blends into the busy, eclectic neighboring storefronts. Returning to the 2012 designation configuration would detract from the characteristic storefront alignment that now more or less exists along the row. The current configuration is on the property line. Returning to the 2012 configuration reduces the floor area of the property, which reduces its value to the owner and his commercial tenant. Removing the existing storefront and installing new would negatively impact the tenant's business and be costly to the owner. Lastly, the existing curb and metal door frame design dimensions are contextual. The mullions break down the storefront, so it is not one large void. There is a painted finish to the metal, and taken in context with the residential entry, there is a unified treatment across the building's base. In addressing the existing conditions at the residential entrance, we propose painting the cream-colored door surround brown to match the color above, brown-orange, to match the color above, and painting the security camera the same proposed color so that it blends in with the facade. We request legalization of the door frame, transom, and transom bar, which are better than what was there at the time of the 2012 designation. The metal design and dimensions are contextual. And that is it.
All right, thank you. Any questions, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson. Did you have a question?
The issue is essentially the entrance door and not the,
It's the
the
entire
chicken spot.
storefront. The entire storefront is what is in question.
and the chicken sign also.
Not the chicken sign.
the
Chicken
chicken,
sign's not
just the
part of
store.
this, nor is the ramp,
Okay, got it.
just the storefront.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Other questions?
That's right.
Correct. Just the storefront infill, not the building entrance, correct?
No.
Both.
No,
Oh,
no,
both.
no. The residential entrance is also part of this. Excuse me, I misspoke. It's also part of it. We're asking that it be legalized. And the only work we propose is paint, as I described. So everything, to legalize everything, but a couple coats of paint. To make the beigey thing the same color as above.
Although I know it's brick above, but behind that white paint, is that brick or is that brownstone?
Above, I don't believe above is brick.
Oh, it's
Above
stone.
is painted brownstone.
I see. I see.
Using the same sort
So
of
you're
thing.
proposing a color to match the painted brownstone.
Right, right.
Okay.
And just like we're requesting permission to keep the storefront, we're requesting permission to keep the door and transom to the residential entrance.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, any other questions? All right, let's move to public testimony. I'm going to turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one hand raised in the attendees list, that being John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society of New York. The previous storefront had a fabric awning, transoms over the wood storefront doors, and discrete signs. These features had some sympathetic architectural relationship to the building and historic district. The illegal work replaced these with an enormous projecting metal box and screaming overhead, oversized signs, and a doorfront. It is our hope that when retail streets are included in historic districts, regulation would result in improvements over time. Such improvements would result in storefronts that are harmonious in scale, materials, and architectural details with the historic buildings to which they are affixed. This work took us in the opposite direction. It should not be legalized. And finally, I would ask the question I've heard you discuss very often: would you approve this if it came in as a new application? Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I see one further hand raised, that being Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
HDC asks LPC not to legalize this storefront redesign, which was undertaken without permits. We believe that the signage is too large and should be more sensitive to the building's historic condition. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not introduce myself. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 6 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you very much. Would you like to respond to the comments we've heard?
I just want to remind everyone that the sign is not included in this application. And so that, I believe, is to Lucy's point. And I think I went over the history of the storefront. This is the 4th iteration, and it was done prior to ownership. And I don't think it's bad considering the context. And I think I'd just be repeating myself.
Okay, I mean, so, we have been flexible in the configuration of storefronts and approved storefronts that are operable doors. But oftentimes it comes down to the details. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the details of the existing storefronts. I don't know if you have any close-up photographs that show, is it flat metal? Is there any articulation, the framing?
That's what it looks like. So there's a tiny bit of articulation. I wouldn't say it's, I wouldn't say that it has deep shadows, but it's articulated, and I think the scale is sort of appropriate. It's not terribly modern looking.
Is that wood or metal? I'm sorry.
metal.
That's what I thought. It just,
metal.
one piece looked a little like wood.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I mean, it has reveals, and
the metal panel on the sides of the storefront infill, is that part of this? Right on the left, I think it was at least on the left side, where you'd expect to have a cast iron pilaster. So under the V, sort of. Or are we just looking at the doors?
Yeah, it was a flat panel of some sort in the prior condition if it was simply painted. That might be something the staff would otherwise review had the storefront itself been eligible for staff review.
Okay.
Similarly, if it's not historic fabric, it is possible that we would have also approved a flat metal panel if the rest of the storefront were eligible. But in this case,
Okay.
it's kind of connected in that way.
All right. So it just really comes down to the doors. Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
This was installed in 2012?
Is that correct?
At the top is a photograph taken at time of designation, so 2012. The bottom is contemporary. The owner purchased in 2014. And the
already
storefront that is there was a different sign, not the sign that you see above. There was a different sign that's been replaced. It's not part of this application. But that storefront, as I understand it, looked exactly that way when the owner purchased it in 2012. So sometime between designation and current ownership, there was an illegal installation of this storefront.
So it was installed sometime between 2012 and 2014. The owner purchased it after 2014, inherited
In 2014.
in 2014, inherited the condition. And I see we didn't issue actually violations until 2023.
And that
Right.
is because applications were put in to do this other work, the chicken sign, the ramp, some stuff inside, so it came to your attention.
Okay, so we,
That's why we're here. 'cause it
okay,
came to your
all right. So
attention.
you were applying for this other work.
Not
and-
me, a
Or
different
not,
outfit.
okay. Somebody was applying in 2023
Yeah.
for other work, and that's when we saw the storefront that was about almost 10 years old at that point. Okay. All right, and it's really primarily the doors that we're looking at and the main entry door. And do you have a close-up of the main entry door?
To the residents,
Yeah.
I do.
Okay, so it is a flat metal door. And did it previously have a transom like the
Let
building
me
next
show you
door?
What it looked like previously. Can you see that? It was like this metal, it was horrible. Can you see it?
Where-
Let's see, where's my little?
Where are you looking at? Left?
I'm looking at the upper.
Top right picture on that.
So
there.
Sarah, it is
Or
brick
actually,
there.
let's see.
They've
can we
plastered
see it?
over it or sparged over
There you
it.
go, there you
Yeah.
go. Can
Because
you
the
see it?
pictures historic are all brick.
Can you see this? That's it. It's like wood with a little peephole.
Right.
Okay. And the transom was just a plain glass or?
It was a leaded glass transom. There was sort of a dental transom bar and it had perimeter wood framing elements. So the door was definitely a replacement door, but the rest of it was historic fabric from some era.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. All right, other questions? Okay, let's close the hearing and move to our discussion. Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we'll begin our discussion. So we are looking at a request to legalize the storefront, which is a metal storefront consisting of primarily doors, and also looking at the removal of a modern door at the main building entry and a historic transom, and its replacement with a new modern metal door and transom. And then the applicant also proposes to replace the white paint with paint that matches the coating on the upper floors. The ramp is not included in this, and the sign is not included in this. Okay. Is included. Okay, so it's the storefront infill between the piers and the residential entry. Vice Chair Bland, can you start this one?
Sure. That's such a soft heart. You know, storefronts come and go so often. I do give a little laxity to them. This is borderline, however, even for me. It's a little hard to separate out the sign and
I know.
the ramp, but once you do, certainly the black helps mitigate the issues. I don't know, I think I'm leaning toward being able to accept it, but I'm going for
Okay.
some plunging into unknown territory with the rest of my.
Okay. All right.
Here.
All right, Commissioner Lutfi.
Definitely not one of these things you want to deal with. Man, that's my sign. Let me use yours again. Okay, so look, the street's a hodgepodge. If we can go to just page, I mean, we only have to go to that page, or yeah, it's just a hodgepodge of signage. There's nothing is respectful of anything. And I'm surprised there's not a business improvement district here, but, or maybe there is, and they're not really doing anything about this kind of issue. I think normally if this came to us, we would, and it was new, we would make changes. I think since it's been in place for such a long time now, I feel like we should accept it, and with the caveat that in the future, should there be changes to the storefront and the transom, that they need to take the integrity of the architecture into consideration. They have to come before us for approval.
Commissioner Chu.
Agreed. But that said, I do think that I'm trying to look at it like that, like it came as a proposal and we're commenting on what we think of this design. I do think that the storefront itself, the doors in the middle of this plan at the lower level will be something that constantly changes. I'm trying to put it in context of the historic building. So I do think that the residential entry on the right side should have some of the fabric that it did used to have. And I do want the applicant to work with staff to bring some of that back. On the left side, I'm just troubled by the darkness just kind of going, randomly to the left, and I want a bookend. I want that masonry. If I look at the historic, it was brick, but it definitely framed the storefront. Hell, now because of it's all dark, I don't know how to even define it. You look on the left, right under M for meat, there's a vertical piece that comes down and the storefront set back into that. So and that's a minor issue because that was parged over. I see it was paint before, it could be paint now. I don't feel like it's going to make a big difference to ask the applicant to make revisions to the storefront system because I don't think it will make a huge impact to it. I just want to keep the historic framing and respect the residential door entry on the right.
Thank you, Commissioner Master.
Yeah. Usually I'm very supportive of these commercial storefronts. But in this case, I think it's very extreme. Especially when we got rid of the transom and, and a lot of the definition. So I would agree with Stephen's suggestions, that they work with staff to see what they can do on the residential door. And then I don't know if they can add just some type of definition to what's existing, just to refer to a transom. I'm not sure, but maybe they can work with staff to come up with something.
All right, Commissioner Jefferson.
Something definitely should be done about the residential door and tie that in better. I was worried about the ramp because the ramp is there now. And if you try to modify that or move it back or shift it, it starts to affect the ramp. And so I can let the existing storefront go, but the residential should be carefully thought through to work well with, but it's there now.
Okay, Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree with Commissioner Jefferson and many of the other commissioners.
All right, and Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I think this is a interesting case, but I think there's something must be done on the residential side.
Okay. All right.
Okay, in the matter of 311 7th Avenue, the Park Slope Historic District Extension. This is an application to legalize the installation of storefront infill without Landmark Preservation Commission permits. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Park Slope Historic District Extension. I also note that the entrance to the upper floors was modified prior to the designation of the historic district. I recommend approval with some modifications, finding that the replacement of the storefront infill and upper floor entrance door did not eliminate any significant architectural features, that the installation of the new storefront infill reestablish the plane of the historic infill and supports the continuity of the street wall, that the storefront will include that the storefront infill includes mullions and a pier to avoid creating the appearance of a void at the building's base when open. And that the black finish, metal infill and upper floor entrance door is in keeping with other modern storefronts and entrances of this commercial thoroughfare in terms of materials and finish. However, I note also that the level of articulation of the upper floor entrance is not in keeping with historic entrances found at buildings of this type, style, and age, and that the transom at the upper floor entrance was historic, if not original, and its removal detracts from the building. So I therefore recommend that the residential door be restored to better relate to its historic character, and that the transom be replaced to match the historic condition, all in consultation with staff.
And Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
John?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed, motion passes.
All right, so thank you. And we'll move to the next and final item.
The final item is public hearing item number 9, docket number LPC 24-03829, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 1319, lot 51, 418 Rogers Avenue in the Prospect Lefferts Gardens Historic District, an apartment and commercial building with Italianate-style elements designed by F.C. Bucar and built in 1908. The application is to legalize coating the rear facade and modifications of masonry openings without Landmarks Preservation Commission permits.
The item before you is for 418 Rogers Avenue, located on the west side of Rogers Avenue, between Sterling Street and Lefferts Avenue in the Prospect Lefferts Gardens Historic District. The application is to legalize the coating of the rear facade and the alteration of masonry openings at the top floor of the rear facade. Lindsay Weiss of Lindsay Weiss Architects is the owner and applicant.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Weiss, and I'm the owner and architect of Broadway. I purchased this building in 2020 and have spent 2023 removing. My design firm is in the storefront office space, and I rent out the 2 residential apartments upstairs. 418 Rogers is a landmark building residing in Prospect Lefferts Gardens Historic District on Rogers Avenue between Sterling Street and Lefferts Avenue. Being one of the first buildings to be gut renovated on the block, it was important for me to be contextually appropriate in bringing back the old character and charm from the 1940s tax lot photo, while incorporating historic detailing from other buildings along Rogers Avenue. As you can see from the outcome of my 2023 renovation, I worked very closely with LPC to restore the existing cornice and brick on the front facade, created a storefront with appropriate scale, proportion, and detailing to the time of the build. We are here today to discuss the rear facade of this building, which faces west and looks out into the backyards of all the buildings along Sterling. We were initially approved at staff level to power wash, repoint, and seal the existing brick of the rear facade. But during construction, we discovered from a few test patches, which I unfortunately do not have pictures of, that the parch coat cannot be removed without a full sandblast. At the moment we realized we needed a different approach to protect the rear facade, I was very concerned with the winter weather and keeping the building waterproof and watertight for the duration of construction. Since time wasn't on my side, I reviewed the LPC guidelines with my construction team to determine a solution we felt was in keeping with preserving the brick and also keeping the water out. I made the decision to put a coating on the back of the building using a waterproof breathable top coat from CPAC called Master Protect HB 400. This coating was applied with steel mesh and cement so that it adhered well to the existing brick and parch coat. Aside from considering the cost of its application, I felt this was in the best interest of preserving the brick while drawing context from our neighbors' rear facades. After installing the coating and eventually closing our application out with LPC at the end of construction, they flagged our rear facade for a violation and subsequent review. We did a 12 by 12 test patch for LPC to show the conditions we were dealing with and how we applied the coating. Behind the coating is a stucco application revealing the cement and metal mesh adhered to the existing parch coat. We chiseled the parch coat, and what remained was a thin layer of cement that could not be removed easily. Upon further chiseling, we ended up creating divots and damaging the face of the brick. It's clear from the test patch that the coating we applied cannot be removed without damaging the existing brick beyond. The current coating creates a minimal half-inch plane change from the adjacent buildings next door. LPC initially approved us for installing new windows in the existing masonry openings. During construction, we discovered at one of our site meetings with our structural engineer that we needed to structurally reinforce the window heads with steel lintels, especially since we were installing triple glazed high-performance windows in the existing masonry openings. Since we were constructing the building according to Passive standards, it was in our best interest to make our window details more airtight by squaring off the window headers with the lintel and installing them tight to the opening, then to infill the space between the window and the existing jack arches. We did this on all the windows on the rear facade to maintain consistency and airtightness. While the coating does cover the presence of the jack arches, it did conceal the inconsistency in the brickwork that the steel lintel installation created. As you can see from the photo, the general height, proportion, and rhythm is still maintained at the top floor with the neighboring buildings, even though we did modify the shape of the masonry opening at the top windows. However, we did maintain a connection to the existing brick cornice and maintained historic detailing at the top of the building. This is the coating product we use for the rear facade, Master Protect HB 400. It is a water-based acrylic coating, which is high build, which is much more durable and thicker than paint. It's 11 to 16 mils in thickness after 2 coats, as opposed to 2 mils after 2 coats of paint. We believe this meets the LPC's guidelines for being breathable, allowing water vapor to escape, its 23 perms, thereby preventing further damage to the brick underneath. When we selected the second particular color, prairie dye, we were looking at the context of our neighboring buildings and selected a hue that was similar to the existing brick. You can see the similarity in our neighbor's brick facade to the left of ours. We felt this decision to maintain a consistent look with the surrounding neighborhood was an important attribute and something LPC would look favorably upon. You can see the primary visibility of our rear facade is from other people's backyards in the rear, and there is oblique visibility of our rear facade from Woodford's Avenue. Even from the narrowest view, you can see that they have maintained the size and rhythm of the windows at the top. On the right, you can see that our building has no visibility from Sterling Street. In conclusion, the application is to legalize the rear coating as installed and pictured on the right. We applied the coating with the best intent of keeping the character of the neighborhood and preserving the brick beyond. After going through this process of review with both the LPC staff and the Prospect Leopards Community Board, we are humbly aware of the reality that we made this decision without LPC's approval and are in the unfortunate position of asking for approval after the fact. We had the best of intentions during construction and tried to make sound decisions around constructability, waterproofing, budget, and timing with the materials available to us at the time. We do believe the outcome is politically pleasing and in keeping with the character of Prospect Leopards Gardens, even if it is not visible to the whole of the neighborhood. We ask for your thoughtful consideration in helping us keep our rear facade.
Yes, Vice Chair Bland.
The windows were always flat across, right? It was just the brick that,
No, they have the jack arches in the existing condition on the left and we squared them out.
the windows themselves. Yeah,
I
okay.
think those are modern windows that are square-headed, actually, within the jack arch opening.
In the original condition.
The original condition.
New windows.
Yeah.
They square. But the opening masonry didn't have an arch.
Yes, that's my point. What would it take? Can it be retrofitted to get that arch back? Without taking it all apart and everything? I mean, can you go in and,
Have to take off the spectrum, which we're gonna test that.
but what about doing it just at the,
We'd have to take out the steel control that we installed
yeah, okay.
and then infill that, which does compromise our area.
And I think that actually squaring off the windows, Emma, the lower floors is technically staff level. It's the upper floor where the staff can't approve modifying the opening, right?
Correct.
So it's just the top floor that we're looking at in terms of the squaring off of the openings and then obviously the entire facade. Commissioner Ginsburg, followed by Commissioner Jeff.
So I have a question for staff. If somebody calls and says, I'm in the middle of construction and what I showed on the drawings, I can't do, how long does it take you to respond?
If it's a telephone call, we do our best to respond within 24 business hours. And if it's an email, we do our best to respond within 48 business hours. But that is sometimes.
Right, but I think the point is that if somebody is in the middle of construction and they find out that the field conditions have vary and they need to make a decision, an amendment, they reach out to us and we try to work with them to stabilize whatever the condition is, and then we will get out as quickly as we can. So I think probably within 2 days, we're working out a plan with them for the revised scheme, is what Emma's saying.
I just, and you may have an explanation or not, as a trained architect, you should have known better. And before we discuss the specifics of what, if anything, you should do, and we may be in a situation where the cure is worse than the violation, I just want to flag, and maybe we need to, when we issue a permit, maybe there needs to be a little note memo attached.
Yeah, actually, we have language in our permits that say that if the site conditions vary, you need to stop work and contact the staff. It's in there. It's in every single one of our permits. I mean, I think we could bold it, maybe make it even more obvious, but it is an obligation that we make clear.
So, right.
Yeah.
Okay. But unless you have any more explanation, I just wanted to understand that.
I'm at the time during construction with my history of working with LPC on this application, I was experienced, I don't want to make beleaguer this point, but I waited a long time for, you know, between intervals of speaking to LPC, you know, some weeks at a time. And yes, I should have stopped. I mean, that's really the point. Really, the onus is on me as an architect, responsible party, to stop work and contact the LPC. But it is a good point that you make that there are potentially delays in trying to resolve this and maintain a construction schedule and decision making, because there's a window order, there's the stucco vendor, there's a lot of people involved. It is a moving target.
All right, Commissioner Jefferson.
Stucco was not, the original approval was based on brick, keeping the brick facade. Is that correct?
So the existing condition is brick that's parged with a stucco or with paint, or is it just painted, coated?
It was a parge coat, and more of a paint than a stucco, because you can see the
Could see the brick
texture
through
of
it.
the brick. And
we issued a
tried to
permit
get that
for, what did we issue a permit for?
to remove the parge coat and to repoint and maintain the brick underneath.
Okay, and you tried to remove that paint parge coating and found there were structural issues?
We just couldn't get the parge coat off.
Or you couldn't get it off? Okay.
And then the structural issues only came with the window openings to add a steel lintel to reinforce it, because the window they were putting in is just a little bit heavier and more cumbersome.
So since you couldn't get it off, this was the only other approach you could have, stucco.
This was the approach that we decided would be a good one. I mean,
Because it's breathable.
because it's breathable and it covered up, I don't know.
Mhm.
So my point is, if she had come and said, look, I need something breathable, would we have suggested to use that?
It's a good question.
You know, we're starting to show patches in the brick when we started putting those lintels in. And just covering this up with another layer of paint on the parge coat wouldn't conceal that. So to have a patchy facade, we thought it would be better to go more open.
Right. But again, squaring off the lintels was also outside of the permit, right? So Commissioner Jefferson raises a good question, and that is that the existing condition was a parge-coated brick, and the applicant tried to remove it and could not remove it. So the brick could not have been exposed as had originally been planned. So if they had Emma come to us and said, we can't get this off, we would have approved another coating, and we would have requested that it be breathable.
That would have been an alternative, yes.
Yeah. So we would have approved another coating. So I guess in that sense, this is consistent with that, but for the windows.
With this other coating, would you be able to get the arch window?
Right.
And that's the question.
Yeah.
That would be my question too. There could be some way, even if you had to do the infill. I think, although I understand wanting to even, it was better showing the arch there in some way than totally burying it, even if it was the infill.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure now we can go back to do that.
Yeah. So in some ways, it's I guess the stucco system, the coating system that you used would be consistent with what we would have approved had we known that the parge coating couldn't be removed without damaging the bricks. It's really arched openings. And again, it's the arch at the top floors, not the other floors would meet the rules. But because the staff is not authorized to change the top floor windows, that's something we have to look at. So it sounds like it means undoing the whole thing to redo the arch at that top floor. And so I guess the question is, looking at it in the context of the other row houses, do we think that lacking the arch, it still maintains a rhythm and relationship to the rest of the row?
Visible, really,
From a, it's from a distance and obliquely, so. You want to show the view from, I think it's from Lefferts, and kind of, it's sort of the fourth or fifth building back in. Right.
A side question that Mark would normally ask. So in your effort to make your home a passive home, have you been able to do that? That's great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and
It is all masonry. The insulation, the dense fat insulation is on the front and back facade, inboard. So it's within.
okay,
And then
well, that,
there's some insulation.
it's great that you were able to achieve that and do it on the interior. Okay. Any final questions? All right, let's see if there's any public testimony. There is no one in the room to speak, but I'll turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I do not see any hands raised in our attendees list. If you would like to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button right now. Okay, I do not see any hands raised, so I will note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 9 recommends approval. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, all right. Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
When was this done?
I finished construction in November of 2023.
Right.
Recently.
Right, and then I think you filed for a sign off, and then working with our staff, that's when we realized what had happened. Okay. All right, okay, so let's begin our discussion. Commissioner Leffey, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, and Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so, you know, again, I can't reiterate the importance of following the procedures and processes because I think that oftentimes the best of intentions, if completed without the benefit of our guidance, can be a bigger and more expensive problem than actually doing the work. So it's really critical that anytime you are contemplating work that you are not sure needs a permit, you should reach out and contact us. And certainly if you're in the middle of work and you need an amendment to change the permit that we approved, it's in your best interest to reach out to us. And unfortunately, because the work was done without our guidance, it's not something the staff can approve. And so we are looking at it today. And I think it's not the most inspiring application for the end of the day today. And I think it's frustrating when we look at something that has been done that is not removable or reversible, and there isn't much we can do about it. It sort of leaves us with kind of having to make a decision when we don't really have the ability to make a different decision, and that's not a great feeling. But having said that, we can have our discussion. I mean, there is the question of the coding, which it seems that they wouldn't have been able to achieve brick anyway. And if they had reached out to us, we would have recommended or approved a new breathable coating. But that went along with that was squaring off the arched openings, and that's at the top floor is under our purview because the staff is not authorized to approve modifying the top floor window openings. And we've heard from the architect what it would mean to restore those arches. Commissioner Ginsburg?
Okay, so first of all, I'll follow up with Commissioner Lufty And thank you for doing passive house and energy efficient. The frustration here is, I think the cures are worse than the problem. But what I would have wanted to see, if this had come to me before you did it or in the middle, was in some way an expression of that arch. And it could have been as simple as a slight recess of, you did an infill there that was slightly recessed from the parge coating you put on the rest of it. So so I'm really frustrated because you should have known better. It was clear. But as I said, trying to do something now, I think is going to be worse than the problem. And so we just accept it and live with it.
Yeah, and it is very frustrating, and I share your frustration about that. But I mean, I guess to Vice Chair Bland's point, we do see it obliquely, and you still read the tripartite rhythm. So I think that is in its favor. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, just wondering whether do we typically ask for the future when the window does need to be replaced? Do you want to recreate that top arch?
Well, you'd have to redo the wall, the whole wall, yeah.
A lintel, otherwise the lintel is there. Yeah. Yeah. So, but otherwise, I'm totally in agreement with Commissioner Ginsburg.
Okay, Vice Chair Bland?
I'm going to take a slightly different tack. I think the wonderful work that this applicant has done on the front of the house in close coordination with staff, the fact that we're only talking about the tops of 3 windows with a little arch or flat that is not visible by anybody, let's say, except those that are living there, but that's not our rule. It's the public view, public realm. And that she made these, and that she's doing a passive house, and that she made these on the spur of the moment based on some frustrating moments in construction. I'm going to give her not only a pass, but I'm not frustrated. I think this is okay to accept as is.
Thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate, but I think that given the fact that if she had come to us in an emergency, we would have recommended that she do her rear wall exactly the way that she did it. And the fact that this particular coating is breathable, I can accept that. And I also can accept the windows as they are because the visibility is minimal and it was very helpful in making this a passive house. That said, please don't do anything else again without consulting with us in a similar situation.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I'm going to be in agreement with my fellow commissioners, although I honestly do not see the need to have redone those lintels at all. The window can be thick because it's triple glazed, but it has no weight or load on the lintel above it. I don't see how that affects it. It would have been an easier job. Okay.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Master?
Yeah, I'm going to agree, but I will note that the 3rd floor lintels, I don't think we would have approved them. I think we would have asked for the arches. I just wanted to note that, but other than that, I think we have to leave it as is.
All right, Commissioner Jefferson?
I've been having difficulty with all of these all day long. And in this particular case, an architect, right? An agency that doing good work. And
Okay, all right. All right, so I think we can support this. Are you comfortable making the motion? Okay.
With regards to LPC 24-03829, 418 Rogers Avenue, Prospect Lefferts Garden Historic District. An apartment and commercial building with Italianate style elements designed by F.C. Buchar, and built in 1908. Application is to legalize coating the rear facade, modifications of masonry openings without Landmark Preservation Commission permits. It's the end of the day. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Prospect Lefferts Garden Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the brick rear facade has previously been parged and sawtooth brick cornice was retained. Therefore, the application of the lath and coating did not conceal previously exposed historic fabric, that the effort to remove the coating would damage the underlying brick, that only the top floor of the rear facade is seasonally visible from the public thoroughfare to the south on Lefferts Avenue, and is seen in the context of adjacent rear facades, the majority of which have some form of coating or painted finish, helping it to remain a discrete presence in the view, and that the work does not detract from the special architectural historic character of the streetscape of the Prospect Lefferts Gardens Historic District.
Thank you.
And that's it.
That's it. Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland. Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you, and good luck finishing the rest of your project. All right, that concludes our public hearing and public meeting for today, March 5th, 2024. And I want to thank everybody for your hard work today, and we will see you, I think, in 2 weeks. All right, 2 weeks. All right, thanks, everybody.